That is what I'm talking about. Welcome, Arvanauts, to a Tuesday stream. It is September 11th, 2018. It is 12:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time in the year of our Lord, etc., etc., etc. And welcome to day 29 of Adventures in Middle-earth, Wilderland Adventures, Episode 5, A Darkness in the Marshes. It's got more subtitles than your standard film. But I'm very happy to have everyone here. I hope everyone is enjoying themselves on this Tuesday here as we're closing in on early fall. And I hope everyone is looking forward to some awesomeness with the Adventures in Middle-earth crew. Before I get to that, I do want to remind people about a couple of things. First of all, ways to support the stream. If you haven't done so already, please follow the channel. That is always appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please consider checking out the YouTube channel with !ArvTube, where you can see past broadcasts of the stream. Please check out the Twitter with !ArvTweets. And while I'm on the subject of Twitter, please retweet this stream with !tweet, so that we can let people know outside the Twitch community about what's going on here. !Arv will get you over to my Discord channel, where you can hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams. !Arv Shop will get you over to the merchandise area, where you can pick up stuff relating to, at the moment, my longest running campaign, Infinity and Beyond, but there is other material and merchandise going up soon for some of the other campaigns, so please stay tuned for that. !Arv will allow you to support the Patreon, and while I'm on the subject of that, inspirations are all fresh this month. I think we only used one or two during my first campaign of the month, which was D&D. So, and remember, we don't have an assignment on Possible this month, so now is the time to use your inspirations during these times. We do have another Wilderland Adventures one, which is coming up, I believe, next week. So there will be more Wilderland Adventures stuff that'll be going down. However, that is, I'm just letting you know that is available to you to be able to help support the players in their time of need or crisis as needed. And then last but certainly not least, of course, is that sub button. We are at 38 subs, folks. We are almost to 40 subs, and I want to mention, this is important, this is September. So in September, you have gift subs, and the way it works is, if somebody gifts you a sub, you can renew that gift sub for $1, and it will add on 30 days. So let's say someone gifts a sub to someone today, you could, 10 days from now, renew that sub at $1 and get another 30 days tacked on after your previous one gave out. So basically, for $1 and a gift, you can get 2 months sub to this channel, get some awesome emotes, get your custom sub badges and things like that. So definitely consider that. It's a cool idea from Twitch, and it is called September. So please make sure to consider doing that, because that would be lovely. Schedule-wise, we've got Adventures in Middle-earth going on now. I'm sorry that we're starting a little bit late. We had some stuff going on with getting some players in, so we will be getting started with that. At 4 p.m. Eastern today, we may or may not, now I have to talk a little bit about this, we may have a slight change in schedule. We were supposed to be doing D&D with GOG Storm King's Thunder. However, one of the players had something come up and needs to reschedule. So we don't yet know, because we haven't heard from the people who are going to be playing today, we don't yet know if that means that we're going to reschedule because everyone can do next week. Because if everyone can do next week, we're going to reschedule the next week. If they can't do next week, though, then we may end up doing today anyway. So there may be D&D with GOG, but if we don't have D&D with GOG today, then it will be more Divinity Original Sin 2. And as a reminder, next week will be Divinity Original Sin 2, but 2 weeks from now, we've got Pathfinder Kingmaker coming up on that stream, which will be a lot of fun. Last thing I want to mention is that on Friday, this Friday, I'm very excited that I have a Composers Roundtable coming up with John Everest from Harebrained Schemes, who did the soundtrack for Battletech, and Darren Korb, who did the soundtrack for Supergiant Games Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre. Very excited to have that chat with them. So if you like music and you want to know more about the people who make the awesome soundtracks that go along with the games that you love, then definitely you're going to want to stop by for that one. That will be 9 p.m. Eastern on this Friday, the 14th, I believe it is. Yes. So definitely make sure to check that out. Okay, with that said, I'm going to unmute myself as I usually do so the folks know that we're just about ready to go, and then I'm going to unmute them. And then last but certainly not least, I am going to move over there. Dun, 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 dun. And there we are. There is the almost full lovely crew. I'll talk more about that in just a minute, but it is good to see everybody. And you just got your ticket for CanCon. Nice. We will, I should mention that thing about CanCon. Let me do that now, actually. So CanCon is coming up in a few weeks. It will actually be coming up in the weekend right after I have to turn in the last bit of details for the second edition of my academic book coming out. So I'll be very much having fun at CanCon, having gotten rid of that nonsense. No, I mean, it's good, but, and at CanCon, we will have on that Saturday, which is Saturday the 13th or 20th. I think it's the 13th, right? Saturday the 13th, we will have a live and in-person production of Adventures in Middle-earth, starring myself, starring Amal, and hopefully starring Will as well. And, of course, Trendane and Terry, who cannot make it from California and Germany, respectfully, will still be with us, so they will be video chatted and Skyped in. We have heard that there may be fake beards involved. I mean, I can't confirm that, but I mean, it is certainly possible. Yeah, exactly. Trendane will reveal, and I was talking about Trendane. He will reveal that his beard was actually fake the whole time.
It would be really funny if
it was old man Trendane all along.
I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you.
Major kids and that dog.
Yeah.
So yeah, Talia will have to get a beard, and I'll just shave. And
Oh my god!
Oh wow, that would freak people out. That would.
Just thinking about it.
It totally would. I keep threatening my. You don't want to do that. It's gonna. I keep threatening my daughter. I keep joking with her. I'm just like, I could shave off my beard. She's like, Dad, don't ever do that ever. She's like, she's 10 years old, and she's like, I will be so upset if you get rid of your beard. Because like, what did you do with my dad? And I'm like, I remember very distinctly my father getting rid of his sideburns that he had up till the age till I was 9. It was really traumatic. I'm like, what did you do with my father? Like, so.
I have a story about that to tell because like my dad used to have like this really huge monster of a beard.
Okay.
Like, back when I was very little, and like then we went with the whole family on vacation in Spain, and my stepmom and he like left for the day and left us kids at the holiday house. And at some point, my stepmom and a man that I didn't know came back.
Oh.
My dad had shaved off his entire beard. I did not recognize him.
Oh my god.
So traumatic. See,
Yeah,
you
I'm
can't.
like, who is that? I'm your dad. And I'm like, what? No. My dad has a beard.
Well, I'll be calling the cops like, someone has taken Trendane out of his house and replaced him with someone who looks almost like him, but we're not fooled. Anyway, but that's going to be happening at CanCon. I'm very excited for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think it's going to be a good audience, too. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that will be there, be pumped up. So it's going to be really exciting. Anyway, with that all said, I'm going to get into the introductions immediately. I will start, as I usually do, with the gentleman right below me, who should need no introduction, but I'll give him one anyway. This is Trendane. Welcome, Tren. How is life, the universe, and everything? Who are you playing, sir?
As I told you guys before the start of the stream, I was dreaming that I was drowning repeatedly. Like I was dreaming that I was drowning, and since I couldn't breathe, I would snap awake. And I was like, okay, I'm laying on my side. It's not sleep apnea. What the hell? Why was I not breathing? I don't understand. Okay, all right, everything's fine. I go back to sleep. I go back to sleep, and it's right back into the dream again.
Oh, so
and
weird.
I'm trying to get somebody out of like a ship that's sinking or something like that, and I'm just I in the process of trying to get them out, I get caught on some piece of a piece of my clothing gets caught on some girder or something that's torn piece of metal, and now I can't get them out and I can't get me out. And so I'm trying desperately not to breathe, and part of my brain is, you realize you're dreaming, right? You can absolutely breathe in here.
Thanks, brain.
And I'm like, I know that, but I'm underwater. It's like, no, you're not. And meanwhile I'm still holding my breath, and I'm just refusing to, and I'm just breathe, it's fine. And then the awake part of my brain is like, all right, fine, we're out, and wakes me up. And I'm like, and so I start to go back to sleep again, right back into the dream, because I haven't resolved it yet. And it's just,
I mean, this is your own fault for not saving the person immediately. Like, if you had just done this, like, this would be,
if they weren't tied into a car seat on a ship, I would be able to get them out of the damn thing. But
well, if you overcomplicate your stories, well, like, this is not, I mean.
I know.
This is
uncomfortable. I didn't realize I wasn't on yet when you started telling the stream. So when I came on and started telling the weird dreams I had last night that were about all our characters having died, that this is. We literally haven't even tried to cross the river Anduin in a number of adventures recently, and so
It's true.
the fact that we're drowning in your dream and dead in my dream, not okay.
There are no omens in this world. What do you mean? I'm sure that.
Is there any water in Roscabel? I'm just so
The only water in the forest is the river.
I like the encounter with the cistern is like a you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I'm playing Tanabear the Hearthminder, who hopefully, well, he's the only one who apparently can swim.
Wait, hey,
I know. We'll see how things. He's never been this far south, so this is going to be fun. For
Whole new world, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, while we are on the subject of the crew, I have to show this off quickly for this next person. Very quickly, we're waiting. Hopefully, Will will be joining us shortly. So we are waiting on Will. In the meantime, he runs Encounter Roleplay, of course, on Twitch and plays Robar Staunton on our stream, but hopefully we'll get him back in a minute. But as I introduce Terry, who now looks vaguely like Tom Petty,
I was thinking John Lennon, but
John Lennon, that also would work.
Cosplay? What are you saying?
Nice. But I want to show on stream, for those of you who have not seen this, there we go. That's a little bit too large. I will just shrink that down.
Yeah, maybe don't show like the full res thing.
Oh, should I not show the full res thing?
No, I mean like,
Oh, yeah, the full. No, I know, exactly. It's like 20 times the size. But this is the AME crew that Terry did. And I think I speak for everyone that we're just like, in fact, I feel vaguely jealous, by the way, that as the, lore master here, I don't get to be one of these cool cartoons. Like I just is like, oh, you guys look so awesome. But this crew looks so great this way. And in fact, I may even leave it like that because that's kind of cool. That's the crew right up top.
You should use the transparent version then, the white border that looks a bit...
It's fine. Okay, but I'll is there a transparent version? Is there...
there should be.
Okay. Well, if you find it, that's fine. Anyway, Terry did this. It's amazing. And you can see that on the right is Tawny. Then you've got Robar. Then you've got the river, who we'll talk to in just a moment. Then you've got these are the parts that I was sort of most excited for just because it's most recent. There's Stone, who that is very much, Terry was very important to tell me that it was to scale. Like that is actually legitimate total scale. And then, of course, Inga and Lillimon, also directly to scale. So I think it looks really cool. And yeah, super excited. So...
Which now people can tell.
Transparent version in the zip file that I sent you.
Oh, there is. Okay.
So when Tawny has Lillimon over his shoulders, now you can see what it looks like.
There is one without a background and one with background.
Okay, you put the zip file up on Discord, or did you email it?
I put it on Discord. That's where you would have gotten that version, right?
I think you're probably right. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, 8 windows open. Yeah. Okay. I will check into that. In the meantime, how are you, Terry? Other than insanely talented, how are you? And how is life in the universe and everything? And who are you playing?
I'm doing great, thanks to the magical power of antidepressants. Yay!
Hey.
No, I'm actually feeling really good. Have been feeling good for a while now, which is nice. Like if people remember, I had like problems with my arm and everything, which are not resolved. They're still there, but like I'm dealing. So that's good. But yeah, otherwise than that, everything's fine and dandy. Taking like slowly care of everything. But yeah, other than that, I am playing Inge, daughter of Ida. She is a dwarf from the Erebor. Well, her parents are. She's not. She's too young. She was like born after the whole thing with Smaug happened. But she is a stonemason by trade, and a wanderer is her class, and she has a trusty pony sidekick who you can see on screen now. His name is Lilliman, and he is there to carry all her stuff, so she doesn't have to. And also moral support, I suppose.
Yeah, it was funny when she was sending us this. She's like, I don't know. I'm sure you didn't mean it this way, but I thought it was pretty funny because you said, and then like this is his token file. Not that I expect we'll ever need it. I mean, like I don't think there's any reason that he'll ever be and I'm like subtext in harm's way, right? Like he'll never actually be possibly in hurt ever, right? Arv, you right? I thought that was very funny. Anyway. So I do have a transparent version now that I got that zip open. So let's see if I can fix that. While I do that, it is a pleasure to have Terry with us. I am looking forward to seeing how Inga does today. And last but certainly not least, the person who is the middle, who is pretty happy, I think, with her character and with Stone, and that of course is Amal, who plays the River. Amal, how are you, and how is life, and who are you playing?
Thank you. I am okay. Term has started anew and in earnest.
Yep.
So
yeah, it has.
yeah. Oh yeah, you know. So it is very busy, but also kind of exciting because start of term still, all these years later, is still a kind of exciting time of new beginnings and stuff. So I'm excited about that. Still a little freaked out by the weird dream I had last night in which all our characters were dead and we were re-rolling them, but we were just re-rolling their stats, not their actual concepts. And so it was this kind of weird thing where we suddenly were the same characters with extremely different personalities and like different roles within the group. And it was uncomfortable and strange, and I didn't like it, and I was really upset, and I woke up like having to remind myself that my character was not in fact dead.
I had this image of you running over to your laptop screen just to see, like, okay, she's still there, right? Like, still there? Is she secret? Is she safe? You know?
She still has those 2 extra points in character improvement and so on. So it was. That said, what I do remember, this should not have been that upsetting a thing. I remember, like, the one stat that I remember having been different is that she all of a sudden had a 19 intelligence. And I was like, that's not a bad thing, but in order to have that, what else has changed now? And I couldn't get to that. Everything was bad. But anyway, it was just weird. So other than that, things are pretty good. So I'm playing the River, who is a warden, a heraldic warden, and a woodsman of Roscobel, where everyone presently is, and where she is going to have to face a lot of family angst and drama, and not well, I don't know. I was going to say Sturm und Drang, but I'm conscious of the fact that there's an actual German speaker here, and I don't want to try and say the words. No,
I'm listening. Go on.
Did you ever do the thing? I don't know. Like none of us here present. No, because Will's not here. But I used to do this thing. Tren, maybe you do this, except it probably doesn't apply to you because you're literally a voice actor. But maybe you've done this thing where you sometimes in your vocal patterns fall into doing a voice for a specific thing. So, you know, growing up, it's just if you're trying to be a little hoity-toity about something, then you might put on a terrible plummy British accent and stuff. And I definitely fallen into this habit. And then I went and lived in the UK for 6 years, and it did not take long for me to stop doing that. Like, bad. But anyway, so now I'm just hyper conscious of the fact that a lot of the things in one language that come from other languages will be frequently confronted by people from those languages. So yeah.
Yep.
If I'm trying to get hoity-toity, I usually drop into something that sounds a lot like Weller. And so it's just Weller, Dr. Smith, C-3PO, that's kind of my hoity-toity
Yeah.
you know, thing. And it's clear that it's an affectation for the sake of
right.
So
what I find interesting about that actually is listening to, because sometimes I'm going back and archiving videos and stuff, and listening to what the accents began as, and then what they ended up as. It goes through this whole like shaping and pattern, so that like by the end, Fifely, for example, in the D&D campaign had a different sound, than he did at the beginning and so forth. Poor Rob's character who played a drow, so basically you had this heavy kind of Russian accent that went, like St. Petersburg by the way of Bengal, like at times he like was straight up like, it was pretty funny to hear.
It wasn't a Russian accent, as I pointed out multiple times. It was a vaguely European accent.
It's a vaguely European accent. That's right.
It was like all over the place.
Listen, as we talked about right now, in a possible Brexit world, it was supporting the European Union. Okay, so it's an EU.
It was a statement, a political
It was a statement, exactly. The statement was a bunch of stars around in a blue flag. Anyway, so it is a great pleasure to have Amal with us, and again, I'm looking forward to fun times with CanCon and being able to see her live as well. We as well. Just one quick note about our schedule. I believe we are due for this week and next week, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll be here this Tuesday and next Tuesday as we continue with the world of Roskabel. And I should mention, by the way, that because I trust my players that they're not going to go running and looking this up, but I just received in the mail from Cubicle 7, who is the official sponsor for this campaign, the Eriador Adventures book, which means if they survive this whole series of things that's going to happen, this would send them west of the Misty Mountains to continue their adventures afterwards, and we would be dealing with Rivendell and all that stuff to the west side. And so, yeah, I think, I haven't totally made up my mind, but there's a lot of Barrow Down stuff there that I think is cool, and that might fit better with the image of this party. So we'll see. Anyway, I haven't decided yet, but
a dwarf-centric adventure.
Well, no, we're not done with this one. Trust me. There's
just like saying like we already had like Bjorning adventure and like parts of Dunedain adventure.
I know. Fear not.
Adventure.
Fear not. There will be plenty of stuff with the dwarves. Also, if the Moria campaign comes out before we get there, Moria is also a possibility because they're putting a lot of stuff into Moria. But that's, I don't know, that might be like starting from level 1 and on up because Moria is pretty big in setting. Anyway, we'll figure it out. That time will happen there as well. So either way. Call it a mine. Anyway, but it's a pleasure to have everybody here. All right, quick recap of what happened last time, folks. So when we were with the party last time, as I pull up our music like this, when we were with the party the last time, they were heading south, basically on a journey, having been summoned by Radagast the Brown to meet with them in Roskabel. And while they were there, they actually saw a few other things en route, some areas that were familiar to the river, and some areas that were not. Tawny Bear has never been this far south, as Trendane previously mentioned, but and I don't remember if we said that Ingo would have been, but wouldn't remember it. I don't remember if we said that you had been in that area. Do you remember, Terry?
No, I don't. But then she doesn't remember.
I don't think it would certainly have been not a lot of it. But of course, the river
might have been like, But
yeah,
she's already like 64 years old. So
yeah. So I mean, exactly. So she might have, but certainly the river does. And as we were heading down this way, the river was growing somewhat concerned in that. Her leaving the first time around, her return, let's put it this way, is perhaps a little fraught with possibility. And because, of course, she still has family here in Roskabel. And as they got closer and closer, that became more and more apparent. And so as the party is...
Apparent.
Yeah, I see what I accidentally did there. I didn't even, yeah, good stuff. Well done, subconscious brain. Anyway, as we were heading to Roskabel, finally the party had a chance to see this place, looking at it from the outside, again, surrounded by this long sort of huge hedge, basically, and then there's one gate that passes into it, and you can actually see the map that's kind of listed there. And as the party entered the gate, they were confronted by none other than clearly the river's mother, who basically said, "Oh, dear," and came running to her, calling her, if I'm not mistaken, Avina, sorry, not Arvina, that's me thinking everything is ARV. Avina. I don't know why. People just yell it at me all day long.
Apparently you do.
Apparently I do. Avina. So Avina, she yells, sort of talks about as she comes up to her, and the river kind of doesn't know exactly what to say as we went into freeze frame going into the session for today. And so...
I think she ended by like embracing her mom.
I think, yeah, that's true. Was embracing her. I wasn't sure if it was like the full, hug or if it was kind of the mom thing. So I think you did embrace her fully, but okay. Okay. So we're going to actually start it right there. All of you are standing right near the hedge, and I should actually move the river back a little bit along with stone. And you'll notice for no reason at all, by the way, Terry, that I do happen to have Lilum on there right for you. So it's
I
no
don't
problem.
trust you. I don't trust this.
Why is there a token?
I have given you the token.
This is dangerous. Anyway, so as you're standing at the gate, as the river is embracing this woman who says that she is her mother, and I will now hand it over to the party. So you were embracing her. Are you saying anything to her, River, or are you just hugging her? Oh, you're muted, I think.
Oh, I thought you were just you're completely muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
Oh, me?
Now
Yes,
you are.
you.
Yeah,
Now
you were
you're not.
muted just now before.
I don't know what happened. I literally just put up my sound preferences.
Okay.
So is this a normal?
Yeah, not normal.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah, she River is very overcome with emotions and is just kind of choked up and hugging her mother, who she hasn't seen in 3 years.
So, like, if she's not gonna do anything.
Oh, well, no, she is. I mean, like, so that's eventually. I'm imagining the hug will break up and she'll clear her throat and step back and say, "Mother, these are my friends," and she goes on to introduce everyone in turn with their respective titles and backgrounds. I do know what River's mother's name is. I just haven't actually figured out whether or not it would be appropriate to share it with outsiders. Arv, do you know more about this than I do? Like, she goes by the river because this is like a cultural thing of the woodsmen to like not share their personal names.
Right. And it does need to be noted that she said that as she saw you and ran up to you almost like before she saw the rest of the party. So it may be almost that you don't know yet, but I mean, now that she has a chance, as she's wiping her eyes, kind of looking around to see that there's the rest of the people, you don't know how she would react, but she might not have yelled out your name if she had seen that there were other people there.
Yeah. I mean, I fully expect people in the actual village know her name.
Oh, yeah.
But, so I'm just on the fly trying to come up with an appropriate noun for her.
Okay.
What would she?
Yeah, because I didn't want to dictate that to you. I mean, like.
Yeah.
Pond. Call her Pond.
Pond.
No, pond. call her stream.
I was gonna say.
Thank you.
I was gonna say Brooke.
Brooke.
Yeah.
The river's kid will be Ocean, and just...
Yeah.
It's like with the Rock and his dad, the Boulder.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
I think I'm gonna call her Weaver. Let's go with Weaver.
Weaver. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to mark that down.
Yeah, the Weaver. So yeah, and I'll let I guess just this can be really awkward if she's gonna introduce a lot of people like this. I'm sorry, I don't have like more cultural background of the.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'll be able to do some of that as we go through. But that's mostly the ones that you have to worry about are the mother and the father, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna guess that her. Yeah. I'm just gonna pretend her father's not there right now. Can we do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the father's not there right now, actually.
He's not.
Nope.
Good. Oh, bad.
Really
Wait, bad.
You're like, good.
No.
He's not. Oh, wait, what?
Suspicion. Okay.
Suspicion.
So yeah. So anyway, so she'll introduce them to her mother and then say to the party, and this is my mother, who is called in these parts the Weaver.
And she kind of looks at you and she sort of does a slight little bow. Yes. Hello. Well, welcome to Roscabel. And Stone, by the way, she and I think I just want to be. I know we may have talked about this before. Stone was she still had Stone, right? When she was there with the puppy, right? So, and she says, "Oh, and goodness, look at how big he's gotten. And she kind of bends down to one knee. Stone comes over, and kind of politely in Stone terms, licks her face, and she's, rubbing behind his ears. Said, "Have you been taking care of my girl now?" And sort of, pets the back of her ears and looks up, and she says, "Well, it's sorry, we weren't really expecting any visitors or anything. But it's." And then you can clearly, she's kind of like stammering, sort of looking for ways to describe things. And now you notice that some of the other villagers are starting to come over. Some of the other woodmen are coming over, and all beginning to greet you. Most of them are doing it with your so-called outside name, River. So a lot of them, "Oh, River," and a lot of them are, a couple of them hugging you. You notice one who was one of your first tutors in the ways of axe swinging, who now looks surprisingly weighed down by age more than you would have expected. You haven't been gone that long. But and in fact, you have a sort of a vague sense that although, the village looks similar to the way it was when you left it, but there is this sort of general feeling of, it feels a little more oppressive in a way, as if the people here are slightly burdened by something, or weighed down a bit. Again, it's nothing obvious. There's no, you don't see people who are in tatters and like crawling along the ground, but you just get this sense that there's a kind of atmosphere about the village that seems different than when you left. Nonetheless, they seem very happy to see you. They embrace you. They pet Stone. There's a number of other dogs here as well. A couple of them that are larger than Stone. A couple of other dogs the same size. They come over and sort of, politely sniff Stone in the ways that dogs do, and all of them sort of talking to each other, are sort of sniffing each other and kind of play barking. You notice also that there are near the sides of over, let me see if I can ping this, over here. These are where the animal pens are, and it's where a lot of the animal herds are actually kept, sort of most of the time during the harsh winters and things like that. They are empty at the moment, but you can see that there are a few kind of horses and things like that. Not many, because the woodmen don't really use many of them, but there's a few of them that are kind of over here, tied up, but with very long lines, like very long, as if they could practically go, it seems like they could go halfway across the village almost. The woodmen are not, big fans of trying to keep things totally capped up and tied up and all that sort of thing. And so you can see them over there, and Lillimon is kind of, you notice Inga is kind of looking over in that direction every so often, just kind of curiously. And some of them, all of the villagers pay attention mostly to River first, but then look over and kind of notice Robar standing just sort of quietly as he usually does. It sort of pays some attention to Inga as well, and then particularly take note of Tawny Bear. Again, woodmen certainly are familiar with and friendly with Bjornings, but they haven't seen you before, Tawny, so you can note that there's sort of that. And they are in the process of sort of going through, looking at you and talking, and then you still haven't seen your father, though, River. And so your mother gets done with all this and then says, "All right, well, you should come back to the house with us. We have so much to do and talk about. The house is somewhat of a mess at the moment, but well, you know where it is. Now, your cottage in particular is right here, which is over to the southwest. This is where a lot of the woodman cottages are. And so some of them are over here too, but that's your particular one.
Where are the animal pens again?
Animal pens are up here.
There we
Number
go.
9.
Yeah, I didn't see the
Number 9.
cool.
Number 9.
Number 9. What's up, Nonstop?
9.
So she says, so if you'll come with me, you and of course your friends, we can talk, my dear. You notice now for the first time, maybe since you first came in, River, that she's, her face seems drawn, and you notice obviously there were tears just now, but you feel like there seemed to be a kind of darkness under her eyes, as if this isn't the first time she's cried as of late.
River notices the absence of her father, but doesn't ask about it yet, and looks to everyone else and says, would you like to come with me? I know we have to go, and Mother, we came here to talk to Rosgobel. We came here to talk to Radagast. He summoned us, but I don't think that stopping over would be much of a delay. We could all go together, perhaps.
And you're saying that to the party?
Yeah,
okay.
To kind of both of them.
Yep. Okay. She just nods and just waits.
Leads away, Avina.
Yes. All right. Great. Yes.
Awesome.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. River looks deeply uncomfortable, and says, "Follow us," and she'll go with her mom.
Okay. Okay. So you head off down this place. Now, I think I mentioned this last time, but I will talk about it again. As I said, Rosgobel is encircled by this. In fact, I think I had a picture of this up. Yeah, I saw this. There we go. This hedge.
Hedge.
Hedge henge, yes. So it looks exactly like this. Again, a note about how gorgeous this art is. There we go. Just making sure I center this properly.
I just want to note that our icons are not to scale.
So I'm gonna have to ask you to stop that. All right. So the notable features of Rosgobel, in that middle, you've got the cottages around the side, and you can actually see, if you look to the bottom left on stream for this one, bottom left, you can actually see where they're heading to the River's cottage. That middle thing, though, in there is called the Great Hall. It is the Longhouse, which is at the heart of Rosgobel. It's the smallest of the Woodman halls that exists, like as compared to Woodland Hall and stuff like that, is much bigger. But it is easy to defend, and as you get as you're passing by it, you can see that it has what look like very sturdy walls. There are narrow doors at the front, and you folks know, or the River knows, of course, that inside that is a long table, and at the head of the hall, next to the chieftain's seat, is a special stool which is reserved for Radagast. And that's when Radagast decides to go there. And again, Radagast comes and goes as wizards typically do. Other than that, the only thing that I want to note is there is an icy cold spring, which is right up towards the next below that stand of trees there to the southeast, which is the way that the settlement actually gets water, because Rosgobel's far from any real rivers. Going into Mirkwood to get water is a bad idea if you know anything about water sources in Mirkwood, and so this is where they get most of those water. And right now, you can see that the water is trickling. The only reason that anyone would care about that, none of you would notice this except for the River, who knows that the spring waters reflect Radagast's mood. When he is laughing, they bubble. When he is angry, they spurt. And right now, they are trickling, which usually is demonstrative of the fact that he's sad or thoughtful. And so this is kind of a measure, perhaps, of where Radagast's mind is at the present time. Anyway, you follow the road down until you actually get to the cottage and come inside. And I'm actually going to put the River on the spot here. What does the inside of your family home look like, River?
It's very frugal and modest, but very tidy. And though there'll be one kind of they're actually so decided her mother is a weaver,
okay,
and does make cloth and stuff, but also makes rarely, but can make sort of tapestry type things, which usually are traded. But she has one that's a family heirloom that looks a little bit richer and more intricate and grand and interesting than the others, and it It'll hang on one wall. So mostly it's I'm imagining it having like a slightly higher ceiling than a cottage that I'm imagining would.
Okay.
That might just be the style in my head for Oscabel, but so it's not cramped. But it is cozy and modest. And there's, besides that one heirloom tapestry, there isn't really much in the way of decoration besides, well, what River would remember is that there would have been decorations of like occasionally seasonal flowers and stuff brought in, but I don't know if that's something that her mother will have kept up, but there's mostly one main room, and then I'm imagining there are probably like two little alcoves that would have been more. I don't know enough about how cottages work. I don't think she would have had her own bedroom in a cottage. But
Probably not.
No, her own sleeping area kind of tucked away, but probably isn't there anymore. With sleeping quarters off to the side. But mostly one big main area. Rushes on the floor, I imagine, and probably like a table, a fireplace. Yeah.
Okay, that pretty much fits what I imagined. So the only slight adjustment I want to make to that, I will now reduce this picture so we can, come on, all right, reduce this picture so you can see that. The only adjustment that I will make to that slightly is that the sleeping area is actually still there. And because it's not a huge cottage, as you just mentioned, that indicates that the family, had to go out of its way, basically to try to preserve it, as if they have kept you here in their memory while you've been gone, basically. So it actually looks much the same way. You do notice, though, that the cottage itself is not as tidy as it normally has been in the past. And in fact, it looks as if it hasn't really been attended to very carefully. You were always aware that your mother was always and your father both were sort of meticulous housekeepers. They tried to do what they could to keep things clean. And you notice that the outside of the cottage, as you're coming up to it, the part of the roof looks a little bit, not run down. I mean, it's not a big hole or anything, but kind of a little more than you're used to. The inside of the place seems a little dustier and a little bit just not quite as kept up as you're normally used to. But as you enter, the rest of what you've described is still there. All of you are able to enter the cottage, and she, as you all come in, and she closes the door behind you, and she says, I'm sorry that I don't have a lot of extra food. I'm sure you're quite hungry at the moment, though, but I certainly have some cakes that I'd be happy to provide if you're willing to wait for just a minute.
Oh, that's all right. We've been. Please don't put yourself to any trouble, Mother. It's we brought our own stuff, and presumably they have provisions and things that they can crack out and share among them and stuff.
Yep. By the way, Lillimon probably can't fit in. I mean, it's going to be pretty crowded if all the animals come in. So, Inga, do you want Lillimon just waiting right outside? Do you want to
just gonna find his what's it called? Not leash.
The reins, or you talk about the reins or the harness, or the lead, basically.
Yeah, she's gonna just tie that somewhere to a tree. I'm assuming there are trees somewhere.
There are trees all over the place.
Something.
Yeah. There'll actually probably be a hookup of some kind, a thing to tie horses to.
Something.
Yeah, I think that's something that would be part of village life, places to tie ponies and horses.
Okay.
Hitching, that's the one. There we go.
Hitching yeah, there you go. All right, so you're able to do that. Stone definitely, obviously, is familiar with the inside of this place, although Stone had an outside area normally where he would sleep, so you could actually have Stone kind of outside hanging out with the other dog / Lillimon if you want. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were all inside, and you sort of get out the provisions. And she puts some water on for kind of tea. A lot of the woodmen drink a very pungent kind of tea made from a kind of leaf that is found in many of the hedges that are around the village. You know this to be quite potent, River, for people who are not used to it. It's, like some people are like, oh, you steep the tea for, like in modern terms, you steep it for 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes, and that's what you get. Like, if you steep this for 3.5 minutes, like it will knock your socks off. Like, this is basically you put the stuff in, and a minute later you filter it out, or you're going to be in. It's pretty strong. So she puts this stuff down, puts this in this wonderful, for you, the river anyway, wafting smell. Immediately brings back memories of everything, basically, of your time that was here. And you feel yourself sort of drifting back into that time. Thank you for the follow, person who I actually hid underneath this picture. I was like, who is this? I can't see it. And I'm like, oh, that's why. Oh, darn it. Okay. Anyway, I will shrink that down to make that happen. Thank you for the follow, whoever that was. I'm sorry that I didn't see the name. So she kind of pours out some of the tea, and she says, mugs for all of you then.
Please, yes.
That was you. Well, thank you for the follow, Joy Millar. Thank you. Welcome to the Arvanauts. So you pour, she pours the tea for you, pushes it over, pushes the tea over to you if you want one, if you want some, Inga.
Inga's gonna try some.
Okay.
River will try to be sort of hostessy and chatty here and say, this is a tea that I've still never found outside of Roscobel. It's really something quite special. It's very strong. You may want to drink it right away before it steeps too long. As you say this, the smell is already getting very powerful. Like as you've been talking in the last few seconds. And so it depends on whether you folks want to. Yeah, if you want to drink it right now, or if you want to wait. Oh, River waits. She likes it.
Okay, she waits.
Tawny's gonna wait. Tawny loves a strong tea.
Inga tried hers.
Okay, so Inga, this tastes very much like it's kind of a cross between there's almost peppermint and then a sort of stronger unfamiliar flavor to you, and it's one of those things where you drink it, you're like, oh, and then almost at the back of the throat it's like wha-bam, like, oh wow, this is like sinus clearing. Yeah, like, I mean, one of those deals. But it is very good. It tastes very fresh, and definitely as you take your second sip of it, assuming that you do, that effect that I just mentioned is even more. Like, you literally, it's just like 5 seconds in between drinks, but like every drink you're like, wow, oh, this is very strong. Like, it gets stronger very quickly. So it's up to you if you want to filter that out or not.
No, she's got to keep drinking. It's got to be like, basically, she's got to be like, yeah, I'm not going to keep drinking this, but I'm going to keep holding it. But whenever, like, the conversation has, like, gone forward, she's going to forget that she didn't want to.
Right. She's like, oh, yeah, like, the tea's just, like, dark, and, yeah.
The thing about this tea is that we like to say here that it'll put roots down in you. So the longer you let it steep, the more it sort of builds, as it were. So,
You notice that by the way, your mother did not take a mug of tea for herself, River, and she sits down at the table, has kind of a weak smile, and there's two things that you notice. First of all, you can see that she's kind of, well, I don't want to say repetitively, but she's like moving her hands, kind of folding her hands somewhat nervously, moving them, holding them again and again as she sort of looks at you with a smile. But again, as I said, it's kind of an uncertain smile. The other thing is that as you're looking at the leaves floating at the top of this tea, this was something that your father always did. Your father was always the one who actually cut the leaves for the tea. And you can notice that this does not look like, I mean, they're sort of chopped and kind of somewhat torn and wilted, like not the sort of typical fresh, we just cut these in the last couple days type of thing, as you're sort of looking at this. And your mother looks at you and says, oh, my dear, I can't tell you how wonderful it is to see you in this place. It's, it almost brings things back to normal, it does, a little bit for us. And she stops and then she kind of sort of lowers her head and she gives you more of a smile that reminds you a little more of her mother. And she says, Well, tell me everything. What's happened to you, dear, in this time? What adventures have you had? What things have happened to you? And she stops for a minute and realizes that, the friends are sort of sitting around, and she's like, I'm sorry, it's just when a mother hasn't seen her child for these number of years, you understand it's kind of hard to focus on anything else. So tell me more, please. And she kind of looks expectantly at you.
Well, so River first just kind of reaches across the table and takes her mother's hand and holds it for a little while and sort of tries to decides to not ask yet right away.
Okay.
The obvious thing that's troubling her, but instead we'll start telling a story of their most recent adventures, and specifically we'll do so in a way to talk about Tawny and Inga and Rabar, to kind of show how the things that they've done together, basically. And we've been traveling together, and we've met so many amazing people and done such things. We've spent time with eagles. Can you believe that?
Oh, and she's just like,
We went up to their eyries and looked out at the land from up there, and we traveled with an elf older than the names in our family, and we saw such things and did so many things. And she'll just kind of tell a story out of it. But at a natural pausing point in that, after having said something, and she'll definitely spin towards the positive in all of these things and kind of dwell in the wonder of the various experiences, but then she'll pause and she'll look at her mother and say, "Where's father?"
And she, you can see that her hands kind of immediately, as I said, they've been kind of doing this sort of thing, and then they immediately kind of clutch. And you can see the knuckles whiten, and she sort of stops and says, she says, I'm not sure whether your father would want everyone to, and then she just bursts into tears.
We can wait outside.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
River will immediately go over to her side and hold her and be kind of horrified, but hold her.
For the first time, you notice, by the way, that her loom on which she wove such beautiful material lies empty. Now, you cannot ever remember, River, in your entire life, that loom not having something on it. She was always in the middle of some project. You could argue that if the spring up there was the source of water, the source of warmth in Roscabel was your mother's blankets and the things that she wove for them. And this thing looks empty. And she just, for a while, it's just sort of sobs. And then she says, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to... And she stops, pulls herself together, and she says, wiping tears from her eyes, she says, normally your father wouldn't want me to say anything in front of, my apologies, master strangers, but if these are your friends, then maybe they should know too. And she sort of puts her hands over your hands and says, your father, I haven't seen him now, my dear, for 3 weeks. And she pauses and she says it all started about a month ago. And she sort of pauses and thinks, and then she says, the Elf Tower, my dear. It started there. Now, the Elf Tower, you may remember that I mentioned last session that when you were going south, there was this place that was a way off to the west that was this kind of weird, strange landmark, and that people called Elfengard. And she said, "Hey, what's up, D underscore and Kerflop? Hello, everybody." So you knew about these things from before, but that place was, as I think I had always mentioned, supposed to be. Thank you for the cheer, Kerflop. That was always deserted, as far as you ever knew, and there would sometimes be like cows and livestock grazing within its walls. But there was a strange light coming from it this time. And so when your mother mentions this place, Elfengard, and says Elfengard, you immediately know what it is that she's talking about. And she says, "It started at Elfengard." And she says, and she kind of catches her breath. She says, "I don't know whether to tell you because," and she puts her hand over yours and she said, "You must promise me, whatever I tell you, you're not to go and try to do anything or find him. I'm not going to lose you too. Do you understand me?" And at this point, her grip is almost painful on your hands, River. Classic parent move.
River just says, please just tell me what happened.
And she says, he sort of starts haltingly, not looking at you, kind of looking down into the table. She says, "A couple of years after you left, some started to see strange things happening over in Elfengard. First it was just flickering lights like campfires. And then it was noises, howlings and shoutings and shrieks in the night. For a while, people just thought that it was someone too down in his mead and telling stories, but then we began to see them ourselves. One day when your father was going out with some of the others to help with bringing in the herds, he said he saw the lights himself. About 4 months ago, some of the animals start to disappear. First it was just a sheep, and then a cow or two. We thought it was wolves from Mirkwood, but these things that were disappearing left no trace. No blood, no wool, no skin, no bones. The chief of our people," and she sort of looks around at all of you, "something needed to be done. He sent a band of woodmen to find out what had happened. 3 of them. They never came back. We went to speak to Radagast, but he had been gone, and we haven't seen him here. When you said that Radagast called for you, I was surprised, because we haven't seen him here for, 5 weeks or so, 6 weeks at least. So, well, eventually, we lost ours too. All of it. All of it, Avina." And then she catches herself. River, I mean. And she says, "We lost all of them. We could get help from others if we need it, but no one has many animals at the moment. Those that have them, we're trying to keep them in the pens, but no one knows what's happened here." And then the messenger came. All dressed in black he was. A deep black cape and black boots. Came right up to the gate. He said he was the messenger for the former apprentice of the necromancer. He took up service in the Elf Tower, he said. Elfengard was to be rebuilt, and if we served him, we would be rewarded. If not, we would feel his wrath. The chieftain sent him away with an axe in his shield. But as he rode off, he said we would know the meaning of true pain. And she said, one day we came back to the house, and we saw this. And she points over, and for the first time you can see that there is a place inside of the cottage that looks as if it's been boarded up. It's actually done reasonably well. You wouldn't have noticed if she hadn't pointed it out. But it's definitely not original construction. And she says, something had broken in here. We heard snufflings in the night, growlings. Something got inside here, River. Something got inside Roscabel and into our house. And she just sort of pauses and says, Your father wouldn't hear anything different. He said, I've had enough. I won't be driven out of my own home. I couldn't stop him. He took one of his friends with him and took his axe. The axe he hasn't used since years ago, almost when you were very young. And he left. I haven't seen him since. The chieftains send out men to look for him, but they can't find him. But I know he's there. He's got to be at the Elfin Tower. And I don't know what to do without him. And then she sort of breaks down again.
River holds her and just like hugs her very tightly and looks at Inga and Tawny and Robar in a kind of we're definitely doing something about this, right? Kind of way, without saying anything. But just holds her and says, "It's okay. It's all right. We'll figure this out."
And she says, I always knew it's dangerous to live where we do, but I thought, I never thought inside these walls. And then Radagast, and then at that moment, you hear kind of a slight it's not a barking of alarm. It's not like that. It's sort of a barking of like, oh, someone's here type of thing. And then you hear what sounds like basically a scratching on the front door. Not a knocking, but like a little. Not like, you know, I do not want to emphasize growling and ominous, but just like this. Right?
River looks up and just kind of like gets up and goes towards the door and opens it.
When you open it, you see, first of all, Stone kind of wagging his tail, and you see a large, bushy-tailed red squirrel, which is standing in front of the door, and you notice that it has a golden chain around its neck. And as you look at it, it bows very low, as if it were like a courtier almost, and then waves at you like gesturing.
River just kind of smiles for like the first time in the last little while and says, Radagast is summoning us, I think. Mother, I think Radagast has returned. We have to go and see him. But just, we were going to go and talk to him and we'll see what can be done. All right, will you be all right here alone?
She says, yeah. And she nods. She says, yes, but don't go anywhere without talking to me first. Please.
All right.
Never seen your mother like this. Even in the worst moments, you knew that she always had your father and vice versa. And having them separated is a very weird mental picture for you, because in your imagination, one of them was always like coming in while the other one was leaving, or they were always together. Like there was never this like big sort of gap. Yeah. And so the squirrel is not a furry, the underscore. It's not, it's a large squirrel. It's not that large, for Christ's sake. It's not a team mascot. So, but the squirrel sort of gestures you again, at you again. And your mother squeezes your hand and says, It's all right, dear. Go along. Tell Radagast what's happened here. Maybe he'll help us too.
I will. All right, let's go.
Okay, so assuming you all follow it, now are you, Stone kind of goes up to you and sort of nuzzles you, and you can see that Stone is torn, like, he's looking in towards the house, like, should he stay, with your mom, this sort of thing is like the impression that you get, or sort of looks up at you, looks back at the house.
River is gonna like just crouch down a bit and look at him and say, just, how about you stay with her?
And he wags his tail and kind of nuzzles you and then goes inside. And as you sort of close the door, you can see your mother just kind of sitting there with her hands in her lap, but one hand is kind of on Stone's head, which is, of course, leaned on her lap, because of his size.
Right before...
Yeah.
Right after River tells him, why don't you stay with him, Tawny kind of leans down and says, and sleep in River's bed. And...
okay, so you folks head off past the hall, up this way towards this stand of trees.
I was just gonna say, as
Sure.
as they're following the squirrel, River will say to the others, I'm sorry. I've never seen my mother like this. I honestly don't know what I've brought you into. This is very strange and very bad. And I only hope that you'll have occasion to see Rosgobel and my family as I know them, as I remember them. These are dark times.
Robar kind of rumbles something about, we'll sort it out.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it'll be fine.
I like the idea that he does that vaguely uncomfortably. Like he's just kind of like, I'm sure we worked this out somehow. And
family problems, great.
Yeah, that's I know about families, but no, I mean, in fairness, I'm being a little unfair. He certainly at the moment his mind is very much occupied on issues of family also. So, so that all kinds of fits. Okay, so let me just give me 1 second while I pull this up so that we can have a little visual image along with everything else. Okay.
Are there non-visual images?
I'm sorry?
Are there non-visual images?
Shut up!
You trip and fall into a pit. No, I'm just kidding.
Spiked.
Filled with spikes. Yeah.
And also just like as
everybody dies.
as they're being led by the squirrel too, like whenever River passes by something that she has memories of, she will point it out and say like, oh yeah, that's this, and that kind of like,
yep,
a little bit tour guidey, but also just kind of her own memories of this place.
It's the Maritime Museum for Roscobel. That's why it's such a little box.
Right, exactly. This is it's also low tide. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so as you head up to the thing, you pass the hall, you pass the spring that I mentioned before. You accidentally minimize all your windows, thereby having to bring everything back up again because you minimized windows just now by accident. So as you're in the process of going up and doing all this, again, I want to emphasize that there's nothing extreme about it, but definitely this feels like there's more of a weight on this place than you are familiar with anyway, the river. But nonetheless, Radagast's sort of the stand of trees, of course, is very familiar to you. And as you follow the squirrel, you see the squirrel walking up into the woods along this path of what looks like crushed white stones. And the path kind of winds its way through the woods. And then eventually you come out in a little clearing in a small cottage. The lights of the cottage, and it's now dusk is starting to close in at this point. So the lights of the cottage are warm and welcoming as the night draws in. You can see there is a horse eating grass contentedly in the field beside the house. And the squirrel runs ahead of you and climbs up the wall and rings a little bell by the door. And the door swings open of its own accord. Come in, says the voice of Radagast.
River does, and like kind of gestures for everyone else to follow.
Okay. A quick reminder to folks in Zoom, by the way, if anything's from me, you need to do it in Discord because I don't have my chat up. Just letting you know as a quick reminder in case anyone's trying to get a hold of me. Okay. So, the cottage itself, as you remember several times having been here before, is crammed with all sorts of stuff. There are the gifts of generations of grateful visitors and villages. There is painted earthenware to traveling gear. There are jars of herbs and spices. There are always cages containing sick or wounded animals, like you think there might be a woodchuck here and a woodchuck there, here, a woodchuck here. Anyway, there are casks of wine. There are these moth-eaten blankets. There are framed wood carvings piled against one wall. There's a teetering pile of scrolls. There's a writing desk that overflows with parchments and letters and notes. And hopping in and out of the window and sort of up by the thatched roof, you hear the twittering of birds, because there's always a lot of birds in Radagast's house. It's one of those things to jump out of Adventures of Middle-earth for just a minute. It's bigger on the inside, like it doesn't actually look like it ought to be able to contain all the stuff that's in there. But it does somehow. And Radagast himself sits in a comfortable looking chair wearing a ratty brown robe. And I want to show a picture of him here. Okay. Here's that. And the picture is coming up on stream. Eventually. Right here. Okay. And so as you see that he looks exhausted, absolutely exhausted and weather-beaten, but there is always in his eyes, you remember, River, very strongly, this spark, this energetic spark which animates his dark eyes, and that is still there. They look as bright and, sort of searching, piercing almost as ever. There is a simple supper of bread and cheese and jams and fruits. Tani, you notice that this bread that's been made here looks extremely fresh, like just baked type of thing. There seems to be enough for the whole company. And as you come in, he says, yes. Well, come, all of you welcome. And here, must eat first before we talk. And then his eyes fall on you, the Reverend, and he says, yes. Much to talk about, my dear. Much to talk about. Well, come. All right there. Close the door there. And he points to the squirrel sort of leans its whole weight against the door, like, and
Tony just sort of very, very stealthily pushes with the pinky to help it.
Yeah.
Tries not to be noticed.
Right, exactly. And so, and he doesn't, bother with introductions for himself or anyone else. He just gestures to the table.
River will say, though she kind of weirdly suspects he already knows this, it just says, Master Radagast, good to see you again. These are my friends, Tony Bear of the Bjornings, Inga of Erebor, and Robar Staunton of the Dunedain.
And he nods as if he absolutely knew exactly that already. And he says, yes. And he says, it's a pleasure for all of you to be here. I think there is... And he sort of stops and tilts his head a little bit. And he's like, yes, quite right. As if he was talking to something right then. And then he says again, well, perhaps the time can be... I don't think it's necessary right now. Well, let them eat first. Yes. And then you think for a minute, you're like, and then you notice that popping up above his shoulder is actually what looks like the face of a small, even looks like a baby bird that is twittering to him. He says, yes, well, that's fine then. And the bird sort of slips back down behind him into his cloak. And he says, yes, well, And as you sit down to eat, assuming you all do, the food, by the way, is... Now, I'm trying to figure if I can explain this. So, if you've ever had freshly baked bread, there's very little that's better than freshly baked bread. But there is one thing better, and that is freshly baked bread with just out of the jar fresh strawberry jam. And this is just the right amount. Like, it's not even like, you can see there are little bits of strawberry, but they're not stringy. They're just like soup, as if they were just kind of, made fresh. And there is, of course, plenty here as well of fruits, these incredibly crisp apples that the kind that you bite and is like the sound as you eat each one, as opposed to the junky Red Delicious that passes for apples in this country too much. No, we're talking straight Fuji, Anyway, but so as you're eating this, you say again, what is it? Macintosh, yeah. Just God, not Red Delicious though. Anyway, so but as you're eating this, it's crisp, delicious. There's also a pitcher of water which you're able to pour from, which is beautifully cold, and it feels as you drink it almost slightly invigorated. There's kind of a strange experience of almost, like you're woken up, if anything. So
ionized water.
Yeah, exactly. You're just kind of like, aha. It's really delicious. Now, as he's sort of thinking about all this, as you're sort of enjoying all the food, he finally kind of leans back, and he puts up a hand without looking, and then dropping into his hand is what looks like a chipmunk from the roof, like literally like it just dive bombed, lands on his hand. He brings it over to him, and then says something into its ear, and then it chitters back at him, and then whoops, and is like out through a little hole between the door and the wall and the door frame. And he leans back and he says, "Yes, well, I have some news and assistance I need from you, but it seems to me, my dear, you have some news and need assistance from me. Am I right?" And he's looking at you as he says this, River.
Yes. Has there been any cheese or dairy stuff on the table?
There has been. There is one thing of cheese. Yeah, not butter, but there was a thing of cheese. I should have. I can't believe that. I was going to say that. I can't believe I left this out. Yes, and boy, is that cheese good. Like, it was good. It's not a wheel of cheese. In fairness, though, Inga, it's
Not anymore.
Okay, there was cheese.
That's erstwhile cheese.
The shadow has consumed even the cheese in this land. Yeah. Anyway.
Is that like Inga's Woodman name now, the Shadow?
The shadow cheese. The shadow cheese is your...
No, because the Shadow consumes the cheese. So.
Exactly. There is no kerflop. There's no bacon, and you should be ashamed of yourself for thinking there would be. Oh man.
No. So River, who's been a little somber throughout the meal, says, "Yes, I visited my mother, and she told me that my father has been missing for 3 weeks, and that there's been strange activity at the Elf Tower, and it's as if there's a weight hanging over everyone here. And our animals are gone, and where have you been? It seems like folk here were looking to you for help, and you weren't here?"
He says, he nods sort of thoughtfully. His gaze, you remember this even when you first left Roscabel. You always had this strange experience as if you were being seen through as much at. He was always kindly, but you always got the sense that he was seeing more of you than might be the case otherwise. And he says, "So many questions, my dear, so many questions, all for one hopeful answer." He leans back, he says, "I have been away, tending to matters outside the borders of this land, but always with an eye to what's happening within it." And he pauses and says, "What is happening within this land is tied into what has happened to your father, I suspect, and the growing shadow, which has never totally disappeared from this land, though I had hoped it might be the case." Okay. At this moment, we are going to start here with an audience. And I am going to ask here to see who wants to make a traditions check. Now, you've already introduced the group, so this would just be a matter of sort of the thing that's about to happen. So who wants to do that? In answer to a possible follow-up question, obviously you know him the best. He is favorably disposed towards you, but in general terms, he would also have similarly good feelings about, I mean, probably everybody. He probably would be most neutral, I suppose, to Inga, but but neutral, not certainly not hostile. But he would probably be the most neutral. But certainly he would be kindly disposed towards Tani, and certainly you, River. Echo's recommending you do it, River.
Yeah, it would make sense for River to. I'm happy to do it basically. I just want to find like a non-crass way to say if Tani has higher traditions than me, but otherwise it just makes sense for her to do it. She's the person introducing them anyway. But
okay.
All right.
If
everyone's cool with that. I've lost my window. Oh, there we go. I'm seeing nods. Okay.
Okay. So go ahead and make then a traditions check to me, please. Wow.
Hi.
Well, that is a good start.
Yes.
All right.
Hey!
He's like, I've missed you so much, my dear. Perhaps I should make you a wizard instead. No, he doesn't do any of that. He doesn't do that. But he does. So he sort of smiles and says, I can understand why you would be concerned, and the fate of your father has weighed upon me heavily. I will talk about him in a moment, but to explain that, you must forgive an old man as I wander down a path that will lead us back to its beginning. What has happened to your father is part of a larger, well, and he thinks about it for a while, a larger plan, and I don't know the details of the plan yet. That is why I brought you here, and perhaps by helping me, we'll also help your father.
We grappled with something that was dark and terrible on the place that we were. That place with a name. What was that name? Hakem?
Hakem, yes.
Yes.
And when you say the word Hakem, he kind of, like his eyes widen slightly as if Hakem, because he certainly knows of it, but anyway.
There was some creature of shadow, a demon of some kind, that we were accompanying the Lady Irame to Revan, to people who were going to meet her and take her west. And we had to help her grapple with this dream demon that pulled us into this terrible dream that still weighs on me at any rate. And we saw such dreadful, terrible things, and I thought that perhaps if it was just a dream and we defeated it, then that would be the end of it, but it's not the end of it, is it?
And he says, dreams are always the beginning, my dear, and not the end. But you can use dreams to good effect. And then he looks over and he says, all of you have your own paths to tread, but I'll speak more about that as I go. He leans back and he says, news, rumor and wild stories have reached me of late. There is talk of orcs moving across Wilderland, of evil things stirring up, of disquiet and sorrow and all manner of unpleasant things. And now this news you bring me of Hakem. And he stops for a minute as if struck by a thought, and he says, when you were in that dream, where were you taken? Do you remember?
Do we know the name Dol Guldur?
Sure.
They told us.
Yep.
On the march.
Right. We were marched to a dark tower called Dol Guldur.
When you say Dol Guldur, you notice that the birds briefly still, and the squirrel, which has been standing by the door, kind of cowers back slightly, and it's almost as if the fire slightly dies for just a moment, and he kind of shakes his head and he says, "My dear, I would say that name is one of evil. It may be spoken again by me, but we must use care and caution. I am troubled to hear that that was the place you were taken, but it fits with what I have heard. This news comes from all quarters, but mostly from the west, where you yourselves were, where the ancient town of Hakem was destroyed 5 centuries before. I have been so concerned that I sent words south to the head of my order, Saruman the Wise, who is wise beyond all others. He said that the best thing to do would be to act quickly and quietly and with caution. My intent in bringing you here is to send you to search for the root of these stories. I want you to find information and report back. Learn all you can, but do not reveal your presence to the enemy. If this shadow that you fought in your dreams, this shadow which I think is responsible for what might have happened to your father, is growing, we must know its source if we wish to preserve the light against it. I think the best place to start is Mountain Hall. That is the main settlement, as you know, of the woods folk west of the great river. Heartfast is head of the council of elders there. He is a good man, very sensible. Little happens in the Vale of Anduin that does not escape his notice. Ask him for news." And he pauses and says, "But it is a habit of the old to speak as if answers are already understood. If you have questions, feel free to ask them."
When you say we shouldn't reveal ourselves to the shadow or to the source that you describe, what about my father? If he's being held in a tower nearby, shouldn't we go and investigate there first?
This man in the tower that you describe, he is, from what I can tell, well, I don't know. He claims to be an apprentice of the necromancer, but I myself saw the necromancer drawn from the dark place whose name you already mentioned. He was driven from there years ago. I don't know whether he would have kept any apprentices or assistants near him. If this man is who he says he is, then he does pose a risk. Your father went in search of that darkness in Elfengard. Had I been here, I would have counseled against it, for I did not know the strength that was posed to us, and still am not certain. But my heart tells me that the darkness we seek is found there. It is the root of what underpins the Elven Tower. Nonetheless, if you would go there first and seek your father, I will not say no. But you would be only stopping the top of what lies in the darkness. The root of it is what I would have you seek, that we might bring light and banish the shadows entirely.
River just looks to the other two in a kind of, helpless, I don't know what to do way.
What do your instincts tell you?
I don't...
You are very quiet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, sorry. I get very quiet when River's upset. I can't fathom being this close to where my father's in danger and just ride off. What if he's... And my mother's alone, and I mean, Radagast, if yes, we must address the root of this trouble, but what will befall Roscobel in the meantime while we do that?
He says, oh, go ahead, sir.
Just the folk here need help. There's the animals are almost gone. I don't know.
He says, I know. It is why I have returned here. I thought the wards I had in place would protect Roscobel, and indeed they mostly will. But without me here to maintain them, there are some forces that have found ways to break through my defenses, though they will not break through now while I am here. And you see there's a kind of, just for a moment, there's a sort of flash, like a steel in his eyes, and then he says, when the necromancer was driven from, and he shakes his head, from Dol Guldur, and again the birds get quiet, the place darkens again for a moment. When he was driven from Dol Guldur, we in the wise thought that the shadow had been removed, at least for the foreseeable future. He could be back. If it is him, then you must be very careful indeed, for he is a foe beyond any of you, and beyond me too, for that matter. But more likely the withdrawal of the necromancer means that some evil thing, perhaps one of his servants, perhaps this man in the Elven Guard, is trying to fill the void he left. There are any number of orcs, spirits, and mean-spirited men in the lands around Dol Guldur who would obey a new overlord. And he sort of pauses and says, I will protect Roscobel while I am here. But if I am here, I cannot be there, if you see what I mean. I need you to be my eyes and ears. I need you to gather the information I cannot, while I, if it is, man the barricades. If I would protect Roscobel, I cannot be away from it for now. And that means you must do what I cannot.
Were you here when I sent a young man with a note to come and stay in Roscobel?
Yes, and he has been staying here. He is, however, restless. He has gone out, I know, with some of your people on patrols and searches. As the feeling you described has grown heavier here, he has gone out trying to stop it. He is brave, that one. But then, most of those who end up here are. And you, too, have been through changes, have you not? Even with the company you keep. I would not have thought of you to be someone who would gather so willingly with everyone. You were always, and he stops for a moment, always searching for something else, it seems, something out there. Did you find it when you looked?
She kind of looks to her friends and back to Radagast and says, I think so.
He says, and he nods. He says, that is good. He looks at you, Inga, and he says, I have watched you, my dear, for some time. Or, to be more accurate, I have watched your horse. Lillimon is quite something, is he not?
Indeed, he is.
Now, of course, you've never mentioned his name to Radagast, and
Yeah,
he
he
says,
is like absolutely spooked. I
"Yep."
think it's the correct word.
And he says, "He serves you as you have served him, as a companion and not a master. Remember that. He will be of value to you before the end, I think. Even dwarves can be helped by others, of course."
Thanks.
And then he looks over at Robar, sort of sitting silently, and he says, "And you, always alone, always in your ceaseless search for safety, safety that you find in solitude. I wonder what it is like for you to find companionship. Does it feel strange, I wonder?"
But kind of safety in that too. People I can trust.
So he says, he nods and he says, "I have no doubt of your faith." And he finally turns to you, Tawny, and he says, "And you, Tawny Bear, the Bjornings. I see that Bjorn himself has left his mark. I do not think he can draw back into his own enclave anymore. He must now be more active and present, though I do not think that would please him. Does it please you to travel this way, when you would be best suited," and he points to the plate of now empty bread, "for work in the kitchen?"
In my experience, there are many hearths to mind. Doesn't have to be the one in my home, though that is my favorite.
And he nods and he says, "That's true. You have all minded several hearths. You did good work when you saved Oderic and Brunhild. They are here now, though they are on a trip, but they live in Roskabel, and they seem happy to me." And he says, "Your little moments of lightness, the moments where you have resisted the shadow, those moments of light do not go away. They grow like a seedling. When I came here, these trees were but small shoots in the ground. Now they are a mighty fortress of branches and leaves, because of patience and time. Do not abandon your patience. Good has not been defeated, and will not be as long as growth happens and the earth lives." And he holds up in his hand a small handful of dirt. And you can see in this small handful of dirt just a small little plant shoot, what it looks like. And he says, "I suppose you would expect to see this grow immediately. Very magical, yes? The magic comes not from me. This will be planted outside, and hundreds of years from now, someone will sit under its shade and sleep and dream. That is the magic I would have you remember. We have been here for many, many ages, and will be here when the shadow passes." And he sort of stops and he says, "But I ramble as I am wont to. Do you have questions for me before you set out? And will you go first to Elfengard or to the Mountain Hall? Only you can decide what is best. But if I may, I will continue to do what I can to pierce the veil which surrounds the Elven Tower. And I suspect that you will have time to attend to it when you return, with less shadow that covers it, if you've done what I ask.
Questions first, and ask them before saying anything else.
Okay. So he waits to see if any of you have any questions for him about anything that you want, need, wish to request, are not sure about, you know.
Inge feels rather uncomfortable here. Too many trees, disgusting.
Yep. It's, yeah, there's not a whole lot of, there's definitely, although you do, I will say one thing, I'm sorry, quickly, you do notice that there's a fair bit of, like, clear woodworking, Inge, that's been done here, but it's woodworking that almost feels as if it's been naturally shaped. Like the table itself, for example, is very sturdy, stable, and there's actually what look like beautiful carvings on the outside, but as you look carefully, you can see that they're rough carved as if it was not done with a whittling knife or anything, but shaped through some natural tool or device. In fact, you wonder if it's possible that the table even grew this way. Like grew into leaves and designs and things like that on the outside. It's an impressive technique. I mean, like whatever it is,
Yeah,
it's pretty.
Spooky here a bit more. So.
Yep. Oh yeah.
She's like not like she's out of
Not by no hand. How long does it take to get to Woodland Hall?
So if you were to, now it depends partially, of course, on what you meet while you're there, but I mean on the way there, but if you're going directly, let me see if I can, let's pull up the map here. So, and you were asking, I should have asked, you were asking me that, not him that, right? Okay, good. All right.
I'm assuming she has a rough idea.
Yes. Let's see. No, let me give you the main, let's get the main map. The main map. Okay. And I will bring you all over to that.
Thank you.
Not there. That's the ring fort. You're not going there anymore.
Oh, God, I remember this.
There we go. All right, here we are. So, you right now are... Scroll down. You right now are down here. You were actually right, literally there in Roscabel. And if you were to go by a relatively direct route, it would involve you crossing over like this.
You have to replace the tokens. These are still the old ones.
Oh yeah, that's because this is the old map, so I wasn't planning to use this one, but yeah, I will have to do that. So this they'll be going up this way,
about 100 miles,
right, and then going north along the ford, and then you're gonna love this part. Crossing over, and then going directly at that point to the Mountain Hall. So,
the Mountain Hall. Sorry, I was looking at the Woodland Hall.
No, not Woodland Hall.
I was like, that's not a straight line.
Yeah, no. The reason is because getting to the road that goes alongside will probably be the fastest route. You could just also theoretically just go like that, like you could go diagonally, but the East Anduin Vales are not. It's not like difficult terrain or anything, but still there's a little bit more of travel and I guess theoretical danger involved than if you were to go to the road, which is pretty well traveled and you've been up and down many times anyway, and then went along the river and went over. So you're talking about 120 minutes. It's probably about 120, 30 miles, maybe 140 miles. So if you went directly, and you were to make a good time, it probably would be a good it'd probably be a good week to get there, week and maybe 9 days, 8-9 days to get there. Again, depending on what you find there.
Right. Of course, I'm looking at the river going, the actual Anduin River, and going.
I mean, you'll spend a week there by itself,
Can't we just across at the like nearest point, like a diagonal line going northwest from where they are, and through those 5 trees.
We've already been in those trees.
Oh yeah, we have been in those trees. So we know the area.
Yeah, but we set it on fire before.
I was going to say, there might not be much left at this point. Yes, my dear, there's been a terrible fire. The West Anduin Vale's destroyed. Do you know anything?
We don't know anything about it. Fire? What is fire? I have never heard of such
Yeah, exactly. When you say fire,
I mean, by this point, though, I mean, it's been a year, right? So probably there is all sorts of tender new growth.
Yes, there are some tender new shoots.
Fire, right?
That's true.
That's how it works.
Yes.
No, okay, that's cool. So I'll assume a week of going. Then.
Week to 10 days.
Week to 10 days.
Yeah, and the other thing is, the reason that you want to go a little bit north is you could also, frankly, cut directly across into the West Nether Vales and go north. However, as you may remember, the bandits that you encountered in that same stand of trees came from the south and came through the West Nether Vales. Gladden Fields and the West Nether Vales are not particularly hospitable. It's the most direct route, but it's also a route that would provide more danger. The farther south that you get, the farther that you get down towards... You've got Lorien, which is its own thing, and for some people has its own, as I'm sure Inga would agree, has its own perils that you might have heard of. But as you get farther down and you get into the Grey Meadows and the Brown Lands, basically getting closer to Dol Guldur itself, it gets more problematic. And so, and again, but he did say that the problems he saw were coming from the west. You may end up having to go to the West Nether Vales in the end, but if you want to go as quickly as possible, it probably, you think, would be faster to do it over territory you know better, the East Anduin Vales, and then straight on the West Anduin Vales.
Right. It's do the woodsmen keep horses?
A few, yes. Not many, but they do keep a few. And I mean, yeah. Well, I'm not going to tell you what to ask him, but yes.
Okay. No. Okay. I'm trying to get a sense of what she knows and how what the journey is going to look like in her.
Okay.
Her head. So River looks really thoughtful and says, this, actually, before anything else, Fennec, that man, did you know that he died?
Fennis?
Fennis.
Yeah, Fennis. And he sort of leans back and sighs heavily, and he says, I had hoped you would not have heard of that yet. It is not well known yet to the people of this place. Yes, he had a dark end, and I had hoped after his dark beginnings things might have been different for him. He too, I think, is a victim to this shadow, and as it pulls from the west, more will find themselves engulfed by it, as Odoric and Brunhild themselves almost were in their own way. He says, I am sorry, for I admired what he was trying to become. But at least he died being the person he wished to be, and not following the lead of evil men. That is some blessing.
You say it is not well known among the people yet. And yet her method of discovery was, in its way, unusual in the extreme. Was it meant as some form of torment?
And he sighs deeply and says, or what is worse, my friend, as a warning.
And it's 225 miles.
Yeah. Oh, great. Good to know. Thank
Is the full distance? You just counted it up?
The
Okay.
zigzaggy one is...
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, I saw Finnis dead in a dream as well. A dream that felt very evil, and I just like the thought that our dreams seem to be under the dominion of dark creatures more than otherwise.
He says, "It is not so much that they are under the dominion of darkness, my dear, but that the darkness drives you and your mind to fear warnings and ghosts. I would wish for you a feeling of hope that your dreams might follow suit." He says, "But the dream in which the elven princess battled this creature of shadow that you speak of, that is a darkness created by others. Your dreams of Fennis, they come from your own understanding of prophecy." And he reaches out, and this is the first time he's done this. He leans forward and puts a old weathered hand on your shoulder. And he says, "Your prophecies, your doubts and uncertainties, ill omens, all these are things which have a way of coming true if you do not understand them in their full meaning. These are what could be, but not what must be. Do you understand the difference?"
I'm not sure.
And he pulls back for a second, and he holds out his hand, and a small snail crawls out of the sleeve of his robe onto his hand, and he holds it out, and the snail goes right up to the end of one of his fingers, and he says, "Now, this snail could fall from my hand. It could break its shell and die. And indeed, I had dreams that said that this would happen." And then he passes his hand over, like his right hand, over to his left hand, and the snail crawls, after sort of like teetering on the edge of the right hand, crawls over slowly to his left hand, and then moves up his arm and back into his robe on his left arm. And he says, "But I also dreamed this. The snail was not fated to die, but had I acted in haste, in rashness, believing that I must save it, I could have caused its destruction, and thus brought about what the darkness wished through my own actions and not their powers. You must have patience and time."
All right. All right. Well, I am persuaded that we should go to Mountain Hall. Though how I will tell my mother that, I am not sure.
He says, just for a moment, he leans back and he says, "The weaver is most strong among your people, River, and, if I may say, a most skilled artisan." And he smiles, and you see for the first time that on the back of his chair is actually hanging one of her, like, world-class, quilts that she has woven, one of her blankets. And he says, "This has kept me warm many times, when the cold would otherwise have chilled me to the core. It is weaved together by love, as is your bond with her. Remind her of that bond, River. Remind her of you, and she will stay warm until you return to banish her winter."
All right. Are we are you all willing to do this? To go to Mountain Hall? I have never been so far west.
Nor have I.
I think you mentioned that Inge might have been there already.
Yes. Yes has been there already, and also this is getting closer, of course, to mountains that after all of this garbage tree stuff, like you might be like, thank God we're getting to some actual stone for a change. Like, I mean,
It's like actual physical stone.
Yeah,
not
like
just,
physical, right.
It's called stone.
Exactly.
Yeah, Inge is like, oh, I haven't been to Mountain Hall in quite a while. I would, absolutely, let's go there.
Radagast, how shall we, I imagine there's there's great haste in all of this. Is there a way that we could send word to you more quickly than by Shank's pony? Will we be? Are there horses we can take? I know you sometimes receive messages from the birds. Are there any ways we could, once we learn whatever it is we hope to learn, are there means of sending that information to you more quickly?
He says, well, as to that, there are any number of things I might work to help you. Travel, message, protection. But I am not certain yet if they would help you or hinder you. Say I put a spell of concealment upon you. That will help you hide from orcs and men and beasts, but it would make it easier for... And he stops for a moment and he looks, just briefly you see, at one of the shadows cast by his fire on the wall. And he says, it would make it easier for other things to sense you. If I put too many spells on you, I am writing, these are friends of Radagast, across your faces in letters of sunlight that can be read by anyone with the wit to read them. And yet, these are dark times, and light would be of value. I will leave it to you. If you would prefer to risk a little magic, in the hopes that whatever you find is not one of the necromancer's horrors, then you shall have it. Whether it be aid in travel, aid in protection, or concealment.
What do you think? That's turning to the others.
I mean, we have been good on foot so far. I think we can pull this off. Though horses would speed things up immeasurably, but if there are none, then I'm pretty sure we will manage anyway, but...
More than that, I think the ability to communicate quickly would serve us best.
Okay, so at this point, what I would like here is, as we're in the process of doing this, hang on one second. Okay, so in that case, I would ask for, and I think we'll have River do this as well, to make a final audience check. So basically, I'm going to ask you to do a, again, this is going to be traditions that you're using here. However, you can add 3 to this roll because of various things you did in your conversations and stuff like that. And this will have an impact on what Radagast gives you or does not. So this is something which you could, if you wish, use inspiration for if chat wanted to provide it, or if you want to save it and not use it on this, you could also do that too. It's up to you.
Does chat have any inspiration they want to?
I mean, chat has a bunch that they can throw your way if they're willing to do it, but the question is whether you would use it if you got it, I guess.
I think I saw non-stop earlier in the chat.
I know. He's like the guardian. He's actually not here at the moment. But
well,
oh no, he's here. Oh my god. He did. Too late. Sorry. He's already did it. Thanks, Nonstop. He's like super clutch inspirer.
All right.
The river is inspired. Thanks, Nonstop.
Hey.
That's so funny. I didn't see you in the list, Nonstop. I was looking at the wrong list.
Okay, yes, I think she will use it here.
Okay.
Party don't stop till non-stop.
Yep. Nonstop is him and Specchio, man.
Non-stop. That's my
Thanks, Nonstop. You too can inspire if you support the Patreon or sub at a certain level. All right. So you can do that at advantage. Wow, and that's why you use advantage. Holy crap.
Damn.
Wapow.
Damn.
And I didn't include the +3 on that, so that's in fact a 25.
25.
Yeah.
How about that? The
Bring it on,
super
Ronnie.
clutch. That's what I'm talking about. Well, you're so friendly, the lot of you. I think I'll give you my cottage. Welcome to my house.
Oh, I'm so happy that
Purple the
worked.
brown.
I adore the fact that it was the fact that it was a critical fail and a crit hit, and you needed the inspiration is so perfect, so awesome. I love it. All right, good stuff, Nonstop. That was clutch.
Thank you, Non-stop.
All right, so let's see, 25.
Stops the true MVP.
So he says, I think the situation with your father means that more will be needed for you. And he says, so you had asked him, I'm sorry, Tani, for specifically what had you asked him for?
I said that I thought that the ability to communicate quickly.
Right, that's right, communication.
Like
Okay.
what River was going to add to that was just as she was saying this when you finished, that she's most anxious to go and come back as quickly as possible because of her father.
Right, that's right. Okay, so those two things. Okay, so the first thing, so he's going to begin with what you are. He says, if this may seem strange, but please show me your feet. Well, your boots, really. So,
I won't. My feet are bare. I have an adorable pedicure right now, but I'd rather not show it.
well, yeah, you don't have to actually role play it if you don't want to. That part of it. But you're
Are you
also
talking to all of us?
yes.
Oh, well, then
Yeah.
Bonnie will do so.
Good thing that Rosie isn't here because she wouldn't have worn boots.
That's right. She would just have the warm hair on the toes. That's right. So he casts. He moves his hand over the boots, not touching it, but just right over the top of it. And you notice that he's sprinkling a little bit of what might have been the same dirt that he had shown you before, or maybe it's a different kind of dirt. Sort of hard to tell with him. But he sprinkles it over them, and he says, yes.
Do I get a roll to identifying what type of dirt?
What type of dirt? If you want to be like staring at it, like with your like bonking heads with him as he's like focused on doing that, it's up to you.
No, she'll say, "Oh, but our animals as well. Stone will be accompanying us, and Inga's pony Lillimon as well."
And
Right, Johnny Bear can carry them.
Tawny Bear is larger. No, he says, well, in that event, I will give you a little of this. And he takes out a small wooden box from the table next to him. And he pours a little bit of that same dirt in and closes it. And then hands it over to Inga. And he says, if you sprinkle some of this on the hooves of Lillimon and the paws of Stone, they will have what you have. This is, and probably my friends among the tree people, the Ents, would be upset with me, but this is a spell of speed. It will allow these things to grow and move more quickly. Though I warn you, many things have been done dangerously in untoward haste. Do not let your footsteps race past your answers. Mechanically, what this means, this has two effects. The first is that it means it's going to shave about 3 days off your journey. So as Trent had said, it was about 225 miles. So really, I was underestimating a bit. It would probably be more like 11, 12 days. But with this, it will be more like 9 to 8, which is back to what I originally had said. So you'll be able to move a little bit faster. The other mechanical effect of this is that for the duration of duration of the adventure, you will have advantage on survival checks. So you'll have automatic built-in survival check advantages because of that boon. So that will be of help, and please make sure to note it on your sheets in case I forget that you have that benefit. So that's the first thing he does. Now the second thing he does relates to this communication thing, and he says, as for your discussion of being in contact, and he puts out his arm, and one of the birds from the roof flitters down. It is what looks like a bright red bird, perhaps a cardinal, which is unusual in this area of Roscabel. You don't really remember having seen a cardinal before the river down here. That's exactly right. So it means that it must have come from some great distance or something else. And he says, "This one has traveled up and down the Anduin River, from the east nether vales all the way to the far north and even into the Grey Mountain Narrow. Even I think the Lord of the Eagles may not have traveled as far as this one in his years of wanderings. He is old like me, but he knows the paths and the secret ways, and he will find ways of getting to me wherever you may be. If you have need of communication between me and you, or between you and others, you may send him to do so. However, be warned, he is, because of his age, not as..." He thinks about this carefully, and the cardinal sort of tilts its head, almost as if it's listening to what he's going to say next, and he says, "As swift of wing as he might have been in the past. He will move much faster than one can travel on the ground, but he is not a young bird anymore." And the cardinal sort of looks up at him and turns away and sort of moodily begins to preen itself. And he says, "All right, don't take on so." He says, "In any case, this I send with you. If you have need of him, you may call for him."
Two things. One, and they're both kind of joking. One is the sprinkling of the stuff. One of the back of my head, one of the first questions was, what if we stop the mountain hall and we get a new pair of shoes that we just must have? Can they be transferred to another pair of shoes?
There's outlets near here, and
and then the second one was, as Radagast was trying to figure out how best, and the cardinal was like looking at him, I immediately get a flash from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Or mind your tongue, we'll have it out like a nightingale at a Roman feast. I was like, oh, that's kind of cannibalism.
Yep.
Oh, birds eat other birds all the time.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is funny, though. Any reference to Rosencrantz, Guildenstern are dead is a good thing. Anyway, so he holds it up. So he basically, he lets you know that, Tawny, and then the cardinal sort of flutters up to the frame on top of the door. And Radagast says, "Oh, never mind. That's just the recycling being picked up outside." And then the last one that he says is,
Radagast bringing recycling to Middle-earth.
well, he totally would. Like green cycling begins with Radagast. Like, let's be straight about that.
I've upcycled all of these.
Okay. And he says, "And I have one other boon I would give you, but this is a choice, for I cannot give them both." He holds up in his left hand a battered leather pouch with a waxed black drawstring. And in his right hand, he holds up... So, where's my pouch?
I don't know.
This is not a leather pouch. This is my awesome red silken pouch that I've had for a long time. Thank you. Anyway, so he holds it up in his left hand. And his right hand, he holds up a Starbucks tea. No, in his right hand, he holds up a...
Hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag not sponsored yet. He holds up a flask of this dark kind of, I shouldn't say viscous, but it looks almost like a mead, like kind of a thick liquid. And he says, "In this hand," and he holds up the flask, "there is something which might provide there you go. Because you want to be done by British crisps. He holds up in his, he sort of lifts up the right hand and he says, "Here, you have things which may restore strength and vitality to you, but its effect is limited, and there are times when, if you are not careful, an overconsumption of this could lead to some of the dreams we discussed earlier. and I think you may wish to stay away from your dark dreams at the moment. And then he lowers his hand and he says, but in here, yes, Guinness is a good example, Kerflop, yep. In here, I would give you the gift of the storm. And he sort of shows it, and then he holds it over to you, Tawny, just like to sort of like hold on to it for a minute, apparently, is what he seems to be doing. When you take it, the pouch is oddly warm, as if there's something inside, and he says, this, when you are in deepest of troubles, if you are outdoors, this will bring the fury of nature to assist you, and a storm will come wherever you may be and strike upon your enemies. So mechanically what we're talking about here is the differences between this bag of storms, which basically creates a tremendous thunderstorm if it is opened, and it will bring like dark clouds, high winds, torrential rain, and so forth. If you are doing this in the mountains, high up in the mountains, it would bring snow. So wherever you are, it will basically, create a storm there. The other thing is a flask, which would help restore hit dice, not hit points, but hit dice. And if you were to drink just 1 sip per day, and there's enough in there for 6 sips. If you drank 2 sips or more in the same day, though, it would restore that number of hit dice, like 2 or 3, however many. But it would also induce a stupor, making a character miserable, which is the same thing if you were to sort of fail in your corruption checks and everything, meaning that you could actually lose it and have bouts of madness. So this is one of those deals that either you follow his lead about using care and time and patience, and you just use this like a little bit each day as needed. So it's not like a healing potion is my point, or at least it's not quite as useful in that regard, but it obviously is useful. Or you have the Fury of the Storm, and he's offering you one or the other, not both.
If things get really bad and we need the Fury of the Bear, we just have Tawny chug the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then everyone runs. Exactly. Then it's like Incredible Hulk. Everyone just go underground and don't come out until the screaming stops. Yeah.
Speaking of underground, that's exactly what Tawny would ask about next. It's like, how would this bag work if we are in the mountain?
He says, I suspect a spectacular storm would happen well outside of your presence. Perhaps you wish to bring rain to the fine people of the mountains, but inside I am afraid it does not have the power it does outside. This is for your journey, I think, to Mountain Hall, and whither then I cannot say. Oh yeah, everyone be careful, by the way, in the Carolinas, because Florence is barreling towards the East Coast. So yeah, a bag of Namestorm Florence. I hope not. Boy. Anyway, so.
Quick mechanical question as well.
Sure.
Like, the effects of the storm presumably would also happen to us.
Yes, but it could. How do I put this? Yes, but it could be you. Like, for example, you could leave the area. So if you're like, okay, this is happening, you open the storm and then you book it, the storm is not going to follow you. The storm would end up being where you had opened the bag. And so if you were trying to conceal your presence, like a good time to have this would have been when you were running from the orcs in the last one. You know what I mean? Like you could have pulled this up, and then because it's going to affect the orcs as much as it affects anybody else. So, but yes, it is not. Unfortunately, it is. It will affect. Party members as well as enemies, this storm, yes.
Or running to the gloomy fold would have been useful.
Oh yeah, that would have been clutch, yeah.
First fire.
Gloomy fold.
When he held up the box, it was like, here, I'm like, oh no, it's Reed Mace. No.
Reed Mace, also known as cattails.
That was so funny when you're like, God damn it.
No wonder it's found near rivers. What?
Anyway. Near that river though.
No, right? Mm-hmm. Cattails just spring from River's footsteps now.
Exactly.
She like Amaterasu from Okami.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. Just this is actually kind of more of a clarifying thing.
Sure.
I mean, so we're going to Mountain Hall to get information from Heartfast. Did Radagast actually specify what information he's looking for, or is that something to follow up a question with? Because
you could certainly ask him if you like.
Yeah.
Do you know why they're like
that? Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I hadn't missed
Yeah,
it.
do you want to do that? Do you want to ask him about that? Okay.
Yeah.
So, because what he'll say is, he says, well, most of the recent troubles that have plagued the land happened west of the great river, and that hall is the only safe haven in that area and east of the mountains for many leagues. As for what you're looking for there, I don't know. Something dark, evil. With luck, it is just a bandit with delusions of grandeur. With less luck, a new great goblin. If I knew what it was, though, I wouldn't be sending you.
Right. Okay. So River will look to the others and say, well, we have a choice of gifts. I do not doubt in our ability to use the drink in moderation, but I am rather reluctant to drink anything that could bring on something like what we just went through. What do you think?
Honestly, I think the meat would be more useful, but I'm not just saying that because booze.
Yes, what does it taste like before we make our
Let's be clear.
What does what taste like? I already tasted.
An awesome black and tan.
Yeah.
No, it's like kind of a honey mead, and it is you would guess he actually doesn't want to let you sip it yet until you've decided if this is what you really want, but yeah.
Isn't that like a dwarven innate ability that I can just identify?
You can identify like the taste of what it definitely looks like. It has the consistency of kind of a dark honey mead, and if you had to guess, I mean, like these people are too busy worrying about their herbs and stuff, but they do know how to make some good beer. So I mean, you know, that's a positive.
22 years.
Remind me how the hit dice thing was. It restores hit dice. So the idea is that if we get into a fight and we have our hit points are diminished, then we roll our hit dice to regain them over time.
Correct. So remember that you have a certain number of hit dice that gets restored between long rests, and we've already talked about how long rests are not easy to come by. You can use those hit dice to restore hit points during short rests. So if you're restoring hit dice, basically it means that you could use, say 3 hit dice during a short rest, which means you get to roll your hit number, which is like an 8-sided die or whatever. Roll 3 of those to restore your hit points, and then if you drank this, you would restore, and you'd have to roll for it, 1d4 hit dice again. So it would have that value. But then I also want to point out, it could be more useful. However, if you drank the, if you sipped from it and you roll a 1, then you restored 1 hit die. Now that's still potentially a certain number of hit points, but it's not a guarantee. And so the only way to make sure that you got more hit dice back is if you drank more than just the norm. And we've already talked about the dangers there. So it's kind of it's good and bad. It's trade-offs. Right. But hit dice are valuable. I mean, as you all noticed, like they make a difference, especially in this campaign where it's difficult to rest.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what do you all think?
I'm inclined to agree with Inga. I think the beverage is the wiser choice.
River looks reluctant, not only for the reason that she gave, but because she thinks that having a storm in her pocket would be hella awesome.
Lore Master agrees that it would be pretty sweet, but it's just, but I yeah.
Just imagine Robar like revealing his kingly name in a thunderstorm.
Exactly, that would be pretty.
From a pouch.
I am the power of the storm. Yeah. It would be pretty slick.
Sadly, so I don't know what Robar would actually.
I don't either. That's one reason why I haven't answered for him, and I don't know what he would say.
Why not the sea? Well, Kerflop in all caps is like, this is the storm. I think chat probably loves the idea of the storm.
Like that's a problem with me, like because like for meta reasons I would absolutely go with the storm, but like Inga would go with the brew.
Would go with the brew.
Totally
yeah.
And I mean, River's reluctance is just because, like, man, dreams. They're
So,
just, they play.
Can any of us pickpocket just like the storm from?
Can we please have both? Yeah, surely not.
Yeah, go ahead and pickpocket a wizard.
By the way, so I looked it up, and the actual mileage is about 190 miles all total. It's about 60 miles from Roscabel to Anduin. It's roughly about, if you were to go by the boat or just on the path, about 40 miles north, and then it would be about over 80 miles going to the west to Mountain Hall. So we were pretty close. It's about 195 miles or so. I mention that because the one thing to think about with the storm is that you will be overland for a while before you get to the Mountain Hall. However, after that, you have no idea, be outdoors or indoors. And as we said, the storm bag is hella cool, but was totally useless if you're indoors. So it really is. I can't advise you guys. I could see it either going either way.
So I have a brass D4 here. What are the various numbers going to represent? One for the, evens for the drink, odds for the storm.
We could, well, let's keep it. What I would suggest is we roll the die for Robar's choice.
There you go.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So exactly. So how about odds drink, even storm. Yeah.
Okay. Odds drink, even storm. Now you guys are gonna have to trust that I'm telling you what.
Of course.
Just roll a D4 and roll 20. What am I doing?
Oh yeah, I like the idea of the brass die. That's a very cool die.
Odds storm.
Odds storm.
I think the storm is more in keeping with keeping our vision secret, and also I'm Batman.
And keeping it secret safe. It's a common theme in this world.
Exactly.
Oh, Roba, why do you believe we should take the storm? No, she does not.
I'd like to reveal my royalty with thunderstorms, if that's lightning.
That is a brilliant idea.
Thundercrack.
Damn it.
That'd be a straight up morale failure too. Like on the part of the other, like they'd just be like, the orcs would be like, I'm going to. There's in the Return of the King films when the Rohirrim are charging at the Pelennor Fields, and the orcs are just kind of like, they're all backing up. They're like, I don't want to be there in front of a freaking cavalry charge.
Wait, just didn't we say odds drink even storm? Because you rolled a 3.
Oh yeah, didn't you say odds drink even storm? That's true.
I said even drink odds storm.
What did we say, chat?
What? Yeah, chat. Did we say odds drink even storm, or did we say odds storm?
I'm pretty
even
sure
drink.
Odds drink.
I can't even
storm.
keep track of it anymore.
I thought we said odds drink even storm because it sounded like a sentence to me, but and also because I prefer even numbers mostly, and I.
Kerflop says redo. That doesn't help. Although if we literally can't remember, then we may have to.
I was sure it was odds drink even storm. But,
okay.
But I mean.
Well, let's put it this way: if the three of you, all joking aside, if Tawny, Inga, and the River would all be more about the drink, then it doesn't really matter what Robar would say, right?
No, we weren't. That's the thing. River is more about the storm.
Oh, River is more about the storm. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was like.
Okay.
Okay. But which is why, like, if it turns out that Robar is also for the drink, then I think it's a cool storytelling thing too, because River will just like have to suck up her like uncomfortable feelings around the beverage, and like she will defer to the rest of the party, she can. I mean, I can see her saying as well throughout this, like, just imagine how useful a storm would have been to. Our recent
like 100 miles later, boy, what we could use as a storm. Yeah
but I will defer to you and so on, and then ask Robar. Echo Alpha is saying hold on.
Yeah, so he's gonna look at the VOD.
Yeah. But so yeah, I'm happy to let the die speak either way. The point is, if Robar is in favor of the storm, then probably like they would say, well, why don't we just. River would suggest, well, some kind of tiebreaker then, and leave it to chance anyway. Is what. So either Robar has decided in favor of the drink, or he has suggested the storm, in which case some further roll of chance, I think, would be appropriate.
I think given Robar's tendency for where he tends to travel, he doesn't tend to spend a lot of time underground. He's usually out in the vales and whatnot. So the storm would probably be something more useful to him.
On the other hand, he totally is the one who tends to need hit dice more because of the fightiness. So I can see that being a consideration. I'm sorry. I know this is
No, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine.
So I totally can see it go. What did we say?
I'm looking to see what it is. Although the clip is not oh, there it is. Let's see.
What am I doing?
Yeah, I like the idea of the brass die. That's very
odd storm.
Odd storm.
Yeah, it doesn't. It just has Trent saying odd storm, which was might have been the but he said that after he rolled the die. Oh. So we're still in the same boat. Unfortunately, because it was now just
we're in
after.
A boat? In a storm?
In a boat in a storm.
Right.
It's up to you. I don't want you guys to get too caught up on it. It's up to you. I think either one is going to have value. And I could imagine either one you being like, man, if we only had a drink right now instead of a storm, or I wish we had a storm, so. It's
literally 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yep.
So if it does turn out to be an even split, River would probably just look to Radagast and say, what's that? I messed up my investigation. Oh, that's
it's all right. It's all right, Echo.
Yeah. River would just turn to him and say, well, we seem to be evenly split between one option and the other. What would you recommend?
Do you have a bag of disagreeable fog?
Disagreeable. Unfortunate fog. So thank you for the follow, Yang. He says, well, and he looks at all of you. He says, I feel like you have been through many journeys and difficulties as of late, and the darkness weighs upon you. Health would be of value to you, and yet I can see the possibility of, and he stops for a moment, temptation. Your drive to help others might ask you to take more of this than is wise, and then you would engage in actions that you would be troubled by later. If you can rely upon this patience, learn the lesson of this dirt, and he points at the wooden box with the dirt that he gave you, then I would take the drink. But if your thoughts are filled with the storms and doubts and uncertainties of what you have experienced, then let your internal fears become external realities. Let the storm be visited then upon your enemies. As is the way of wizards, he just gave you another weighing mechanism, but didn't actually tell you what to do.
Exactly.
What did we expect?
That's right, I guess. Yep.
I expected exactly that.
That's exactly what my brother also expected. So,
A wizard never attempts fate. He says exactly what he means to. Okay, anyway.
I hope you wind up with a big.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody did.
Out of your head.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. River will say, I honestly will. I will defer to you, all of you. Let you decide, because I would. My heart misgives me at the thought of the drink, but if you think it will be more useful to you, then we should take it. And there's, yes, if whatever, you are already, I feel, doing a great service to my people and me. And I would rather you took whatever you felt would be best for this journey.
Is it that you do not trust yourself, with the drink, or that you do not trust us.
Oh, myself, obviously.
Then let me carry it.
All right.
Okay, so the drink it is?
The drink it is.
Okay.
There we go.
So he hands it to you, and then I was going to say casually tosses the storm behind him, but no. He says, catch! Okay.
Fortunately, we're inside.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Doesn't matter. And he says, very well. In that case, it is late, and the night is long. You may sleep if you wish in this cottage. Nothing here will harm you. And you notice for the first time, now you swear when you entered here, you only saw the one single room. But as he looks around, you see that there actually are what appear to be 4 separate bedrooms, like off of this main thing. And you have no idea. You're like, wait, what? I didn't. But they're there now. And he says, I myself, though I would desire rest, cannot take it. For I must be away and catch up on news from the animals who have watched the shadow to the south. So, and he stands from his chair and looks at all of you and he says, I will wish you a good night and safe journeys on the morrow. And he looks at you, Tawny, and he says, guard that drink well. Most of all, guard your sense of self. In the days when the shadow vanish, we will have need of those who are more comfortable around hearth and home than on the field of battle. And he looks at Robar and he says, as for you, Dunedain, you have much that consumes your thoughts, but keep your mind here in the present, and do not mistake darkness for certainty. And you go ahead. You tell me what it says. Yeah. Okay.
He just says,
I guess he's a little easier to play in that sense because that's a lot of what he does. Inge, he looks down at you and he says, I hope you will find some comfort in the places that are nearer to your ancestral home, your ancestral environments. As you travel across, look to Liliman. He will help you in places where you feel despair is at its greatest. And he bends a little bit closer and sort of whispers in your ear, or at least quietly, that only really you can hear, and he says, the spirits of those you have lost sometimes return with those who remain. Liliman is not the only one who watches you. He says that not in a creepy, like, oh my god way, but in just like a matter-of-fact way, like he knows the deal.
Did I mention yet that Inge is a bit spooked in this place?
Yes, I wanted to turn the spook up to 11.
That more now.
Yeah. And then finally he says, he turns to you and he says, you can tell your mother where you are going, of course, but I would not give her too many details. She will no doubt wish for you to stay. She feels she has suffered a loss and does not wish to suffer another. The pattern she weaves, though, has not reached its final thread, and you will be the thing which brings it to its conclusion. Have faith and comfort and patience.
Thank you, Radagast, for seeing us and for your hospitality and your gifts. We'll do our best.
He nods and he says, you always have, my dear. I will listen for the notes of your song in the wilderness. And then he nods and he opens the door and he walks out, and you all see as his form, brown-cloaked form, vanishes into the forest, and the squirrel closes the door. And that, I think, is where we will bring today's session to a close, as we are ready for the party to embark from Rosgabel on the morn. Yes.
Inge would like to add one more thing. Like,
Please.
All setting down for like the evening, like she walks up to river and it's like, maybe you should go stay at your mom's house.
That's totally what she was gonna do.
Ah,
Like,
okay.
She doesn't. No. I was gonna say, yeah. I think that she would probably go and actually.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
take-
Mom,
Yeah.
I'm staying at Radagast's place.
I know I haven't seen you in 3 years, but
Hanging out with Radagast, yeah.
The dog is gonna sleep in my bed instead. No, she would like make sure everyone was comfortable, and then say to everyone she's gonna go spend the night with her mom. So she would do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Totally fine. And when we start next session, we'll actually begin with her, saying what she's going to say to her mother before they depart.
Okay.
Good stuff, guys. So this was, again, some sessions have more combat, some have less. This had none, obviously. But I knew this was going to be quieter and was going to be dealing a little bit more with audiences and omens and things of that kind. And to sort of set things out. And there will be, the journey, there will be basically 3 stages to that journey, and you will have to plan out exactly how you want to go, because the paths that I put there are not, you could just do exactly as I said and go directly west. So anyway, you'll basically be planning out your journey as well as time goes on. But super clutch nonstop again on that inspiration though. That was really awesome.
There were 2 roles.
Yep.
There were 2 roles in this session, and both were critical successes.
I know.
I'm extremely delighted.
No, I mean, it was great, especially because you wouldn't even be able to have a discussion about Storm versus Flask of liquid if you hadn't gotten that. So
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So it was
I
good
just
stuff.
I don't remember ever seeing a critical failure and a critical success in the same.
That's
It's probably
pretty rare.
happened. But
yeah. I've
pretty
seen
cool.
it once. I've seen it a couple times, but not in the context of first you got inspired and then that happened. That was just, everyone is like, inspiration's not that big a deal. Really? I mean, because otherwise he would have been like, get out of my home, you ingrateful. No, he wouldn't have done that. But anyway, but good stuff today. I will start as I usually do down below with Amal. Again, wonderful role-playing Amal. A lot of fraught family emotional things going on there, and a curveball you probably didn't expect that is part of this. I aim to please. What did you think, and where will the fine folks, besides here, of course, see you next?
I love this game so much, and today is obviously no exception. I'm really loving actually getting to flesh out River's background in my own head. There are obviously the specific things that make it into a character's backstory, but not necessarily get the full detail thing. I love just on this spot deciding that her mother's a weaver, and there we go, and that makes a lot of sense for her and her background and stuff, and so I love that. I love getting a sense of what River's relationship with Radagast is also, and I'm really happy the dice bore that out, because I'd always I had a sense of not as specifically a ward of Radagast any more than anyone in Roscobel is, but just that she's got this unfortunate prophecy and has grown up in its had spent a little time in its shadow and stuff, and I just
which he spoke to a little bit.
Yes, and she's very confused.
Yep.
Some underpinnings of undergirdings of her identity are slightly shaken, yeah. So I love that, and really loved everyone getting to see Rosgabel and hopefully putting more of River in her context, sort of thing. So I super loved it. That was great. Where can people find me next? So you can always find me online on Twitter at Tithenai, Tithenai, on my Drip account, where you can subscribe for as little as $0 or $2, either way, Canadian, where I basically write essays and send off poems and stuff like that sometimes. Recently commented on the Adventure Time finale, which was amazing. I'm also going to be, as I mentioned before, on the Writing Excuses cruise, which I'm excited about, but also nervous because there are hurricanes all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it's going in the Caribbean, so that's a thing. But I'm excited to go there with my mom, which is a thing that I'm doing. So that's cool. And then thereafter, CanCon is the big thing. So really, really looking forward to CanCon and seeing some of you guys there. So if anyone from chat wants to like sidle up to Ottawa and hang out on October 13th, that would be super, super great.
Yep, Brahms will be there, so we'll definitely see Brahms for sure. Yep.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll put links in the chat later. And anything else? No, I think that's basically it. And thanks again for this. This was really, really great. So.
I'm glad. Yeah, it was. It went really well. I always look forward to, as I've said many times, I look forward to every campaign because each one has its own different feel. And I really, first of all, I love geeking out with Tolkien fans for hours. I could do that, and I mean, I'm teaching Lord of the Rings as we speak, and but it's a great pleasure to actually see these different places open up, and obviously Tawny's gotten some of that. I keep trying to get Robar more backstory, but he's got to be here if I can actually do that. And Inga is going to have her time as well because the setup, when they get to Erebor and all that stuff. I'm again, that's another thing I kept thinking about the Moria stuff because I would like to do stuff with the dwarves as well. More. We will be, and I would like to do more in the future. So anyway, but yes, so I am very glad that you were able to sort of embrace Roscabel and the return in the way that you have so far. So thank you, Mal, as always. Moving right on up the line, Terry, I was really loving some of the being spooked thing was really cracking me up just because it was very appropriate, I thought, for things that were happening at the time. And I also like the idea that it was continuing to, and I just love sort of combining I give Lilimon a token. Is like, he will have importance. You're like, why is he going to be important? No, he's not. He's off the map. You don't see him ever. Nothing can hurt him ever. But anyway.
Please don't kill my pony.
Don't kill my pony. How did you feel today, Terry? And where will the fine people see you next besides here?
Yeah, this was fun. And everything. And also, soon madness will reign in the Hall of the Mountain King.
So that's right. We got to do that. In the Mountain King.
I will sing that.
Love it.
Yeah, like this was fun, and I'm a bit tired, so like my brain is a bit spacing out right now. So,
I think you're not the only one who's a bit tired.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been awake since like 8 a.m. and now it's like 9:30. So.
Oh dear God! All right, yeah. So.
Yes. Also eventful day. But. Yes, where will people see me next? I'm not sure if like next Tuesday because like that was like with Amal that like.
Yeah, I don't have the information yet, but I really hope it doesn't get bumped.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that might get bumped. Yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, so maybe next week, but it depends.
I'm gonna follow up today because I was supposed to get this information on Friday and was not yet given it. So hopefully I will know by tomorrow at the latest.
Person who is watching from that place, do not schedule time. She needs no training. Her training is here.
I mean, I already like posted on the Discord. Hint, there is a Discord. You should go check it out. If you're not already in it. That it would be great if like next Wednesday we could do like a Talk Like a Pirate Day thing.
Arr, it is.
Arr, because that'd be my favorite holiday of the year.
Did you know, Tari?
Did
you know that the kind of stereotypical pirate accent is actually very close to the Cornish accent?
Is it?
Yeah.
Like I know it's like based on some English accent, but like...
yeah, and in Cornwall, that is a close one, and I'm not sure why. I don't know what the connection with pirating and
because
Cornwall
like
is.
there was this one actor who like played some pirate in some pirate movie like decades ago, and he was like, let's do this accent, and then it just stuck, and since then it has
maybe
been
that's why.
No, it's like definitely why, but like I'm not sure what movie that is. Like I'm assuming it's like a take on Treasure Island.
I was just about to say Treasure Island. Yeah.
Because the Cornish do have like a history of wrecking, like of people putting lanterns out in the rocks and like luring ships towards the rocks as if they were lighthouses in order for the ships to get wrecked so that people could like salvage. I think that's just it's definitely not just Cornwall. It's just like a kind of remote coastal village history stuff, maybe. I hope I'm not contributing to anti-Cornish stereotypes. I apologize.
We know nothing about Cornwall except for that like there are tin deposits there.
It's beautiful.
During the Bronze Age, because history isn't a thing I'm interested in, but that's about it.
It's totally gorgeous. I love it. I loved it there very, very much.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, please go on. Yes.
But yeah, like
Pirates.
Yeah, that's sadly not happening because Arf doesn't have the time.
I can't do a stream on Wednesday. I'm so swamped with stuff that I can't stream on other days. I'll just have to, like, you know, on Tuesday be like happy ahead of time pirate, happy early pirate, talk like a pirate day.
Well, if you do it like late enough, then it would be past midnight for me.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Yeah.
I would be too tired. No, that would murder me.
Don't be murdered.
But yeah, like other than that, I'm assuming at some point this month. Wait, did we already do?
We did already last week.
We did already. Then like next month.
Next month.
The next.
We're doing Sagard the Barbarian. Remember?
Oh yes, Sagard the Barbarian. Yes.
Yeah, as chosen by chat and pushed heavily by Terry.
No, what? I would never.
Oh yeah. Terry's just like, I really want to draw a barbarian. Can we please draw a barbarian? It's like, all right, Terry, draw a barbarian. Anyway, good stuff.
Yeah, that's where you're gonna see.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. Good stuff as always. And you should check out Terry's stuff. She's been doing a lot of good posting on Patreons and stuff. And again, this drawing up here that you see is her work, and it's really good. So thank you, Terry, as always. Right above that, we have, again, Will. I know Will's been dealing with a lot of stuff as of late. So hopefully we will get Will back. I'll be trying to follow up with him soon. But Will, runs Encounter Roleplay on Twitch, and is an awesome guy, and I hope everything is okay with him, and I will check in with him right after, later on today after my streams are finished. Last but certainly not least, we have a gentleman who was a trooper. He hung in there despite being super tired, but he did hang in there. And that, of course, was Trent. Trent, how'd you feel about stuff, and where will the find people, again, besides here? See you next.
There was a point, I guess it was about maybe 3/4 of the way through the stream today, and Radagast was like, he was talking to each of us, and he was like talking to the river, and he's like, you'll find answers about them. I'm like, did he mention that? Was there any discussion of that today? Did I fall asleep during that whole conversation?
Oh God!
I have no memory of that being discussed today at all.
Oh no!
And I was like, oh my God, no. And okay, yeah, Robar probably just sat there. That's okay. I don't need to talk to my family or don't talk to me, Radagast. It's fine. But English Quavers. A buddy of mine sent me a gigantic box of these things. They're very much like American Cheetos, but they're about 1/4 as cheesy.
Ha!
And their shape is different. They're pleasant enough. And they don't stain your fingers like Cheetos do.
Okay. That's good.
But they're kind of flat and they're curved, but they're whatever. Sort of like scoops. But anyway, whatever. The thing with stuff Saturday, that's where you're gonna see me again here. Right here.
Yes. Right here with our newest member of Infinity and Beyond, actually, who was a surprise
I thought
last
you were
week.
talking about the recycling truck.
Also,
like, no.
that's not a surprise. I'm just used to it, But yeah, also, so she will be joining us. Is Margaret Crone has joined the group, so that will be cool. On you go, Trent. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's fine. Yeah, fine. I'm gonna go to sleep.
Okay.
I'm losing all ability to verb and noun and.
I really hope your sleep is less plagued by
drowning. Yes.
Don't drink the dark meat before you go to
Don't
bed.
drink the dark meat. And now, just remember Radagast. Remember to don't put fear no dark. I should have said fear no darkness at some point.
What was it Radagast said about that? Look. The Cornwall thing. That was the thing that I've been playing a bit of the newest expansion of World of Warcraft, and one of the areas that you go to is called Kultiris, and I've been trying to lock down the accent and figure out where it is. I was talking to a buddy of mine who's up near Manchester and whatever, and he was like, oh yeah, because he listened to a few pieces of it. He's like, this is like out in Devon and Cornwall area like that. He's like, but if you take that accent and you push it a little too hard, it becomes a pirate accent. And I'm like, Okay, got it now. If I just take some of the pirate out of the pirate, but keep the accent generally the same, I've got, Devon and that area. Okay, cool.
German pirate accents are so much easier to do because it's just the Hamburg dialect, which I can do anyway because of my aunt, because she's from Hamburg. So, like, whenever I'm on the phone with her, like afterwards, I will just talk like a pirate for the rest of the day, literally. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
Cornwall has more of an R, like the R that I'm saying, than Devon does. Yeah, like the thing that's the big thing is like they will say R. Like there's a Cornish cheese which I love called Yarg. It's
No, it's not. Is it really called Yarg?
It's called Yarg. It's written Y-A-R-G.
What?
It's wrapped in nettles. And it's the whole thing, and I love it. It's delicious and wonderful.
I want it.
It's called Yarg, and it's pronounced Yarg.
Yarg.
Yarg, this be a nettly cheese.
Yes, it's a nettle.
Aye.
To nettle me some nettle cheese.
Oh my god, that's funny. Well, cool. See, we learned new things about cheese today. Well, Tren, always a pleasure. It's good stuff. And yeah, go get some sleep, man. That's definitely needed. For everyone in chat, please give some love, as always, to my wonderful players. Hopefully, we will be back to you next week. Again, that depends a little bit upon either Amal's schedule / Will's schedule, but again, we will hopefully be back here next week. But of course, this is an ongoing thing, and again, mark your calendars because October 13th, Saturday the 13th, we will be live and in person. Myself, Amal, hopefully Will, and then we'll have Tren and Terry will be there via video chat as well. So
I will be there physically, maybe not mentally, because I might.
Because it'll be so freaking late, yeah.
It will be like 3 a.m. for me for that stream, and I will
get some read mace. It'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Get some. At least I gave you enough lead time. I told you well ahead of time. You can build yourself up for that moment. But thank you for taking one for the team. And early happy birthday to me. Thank you, Kerflop. Thank you.
When's your birthday?
5 days from now, September 16th.
Excellent.
September 16th, yes. Thank you. I'm turning 46. My goodness.
Oh,
well, we're going to
I'm going to what?
expect many hobbity gifts from you.
Oh yeah, I have to give hobbity gifts. Yeah. I think I did that, didn't I? I gave gifts out today. I gave, you got.
What? You're turning 46?
Yeah, 46.
Are you kidding me? I thought you were like in your early 30s or something.
I'm very pleased. Thank you. I've already gotten a gift already. Yes.
Youthful face.
You're all a bunch of babies.
Yeah. Tren's older than me. But not by a lot, Tren. You're not way ahead of me. Kerflop's so old. We've talked about this, Kerflop. You're around my age too. You don't hide behind your anonymity. But anyway, yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Enjoy safe travels for work, Kerflop. We'll see you in a couple of weeks from now. And also, good job, Chad, today, especially from Nonstop on that clutch inspiration. So, Chat, let's get some love from the players. Tren, Terry, Amal, always a pleasure. I will see you folks hopefully next week, but if not, soon thereafter.
Take care.
Bye. Okay. Good stuff. 4 days younger. So, yeah, 4 days younger. There we go. All right. Good stuff, folks. So now we do have one other thing that we have to do, actually. And I remembered it only at the very end that we had to do this, which is going to be interesting because I've only got about 25 minutes before I have to head over to start taking care of things over at Pen and Pixels today. It looks like, just confirming, but it looks like... Okay, so it looks like what we're going to be doing is we are not going to have D&D. We may or may not have Adventures in Middle-earth, but we are not going to have D&D with GOG today because we had a player that ended up having to bail out, and so he is going to, for today, so that means that we are going to be doing our D&D stream next week instead of this week. So we will possibly be here for Adventures of Middle-earth, hopefully so. Again, that's a little bit dependent upon schedule, but we will definitely have D&D with GOG next week at 4 p.m. So today, in about 25 minutes, I will be playing more Divinity Original Sin 2, which is always good. So I'm very excited about that, to continue playing that. And again, D&D will be happening next week. But what we have to do today, and this is important, is we have to do nominations for the chat chosen game of the month, because next week is the final vote and the week after that is when I'm actually going to be playing this. So we need to do that today. So I'm going to pop up arvbot here. I will do that right now. Run this. And then give me just 1 second. Load that. Start this. Okay, and there we go. So, the question is, what game should I play this month? And again, the key here is going to be you're nominating just 1 nomination per person, please. But you're going to be nominating one of, you're going to be nominating 6 choices. So I'm going to take 6 choices and put them in there. So Heroes of Might and Magic. Love me some Heroes of Might and Magic always. I would probably be playing something like that anyway. But go ahead and get that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't have the vote in yet. I'm just taking nominations at the moment. So let me close this. Hold on a second. Let me close this poll. Yeah, that was a mistake. I screwed that up. My bad. Okay. Clear votes. What game should Arv play this month? Okay. So we've got Heroes of Might and Magic. And I would say Might and Magic 3 because I have already streamed Heroes of Might and Magic 1 and 2. Growlancer 2. What else? I'll take 6 nominations and we're going to vote and narrow it down to 3. What else? Besides Heroes of Might and Magic 3 and Growlancer 2, what other nominations do we have for games for me to play? Besides those 2. Heroes of Might and Magic and Growlancer, what else? All right. Anyone else? Are we only going to have 2 votes, really? Only 2 nominations? The problem is that I forgot about it until the very end that I had to do this today, so unfortunately. What do we got? We got Heroes of Might and Magic 3 and Growlancer 2. Anyone else for nominations? Any other nominations? Nominate. Any other nominations for Chat Chosen Game of the Month? Anyone? No one else? I mean, well, I guess if no one else is going to nominate, then I'll let you nominate something else, because normally we need to have at least 3. So if no one else is going to, I will let Kerflop nominate one more, sure. So go ahead, Kerflop. Go ahead and nominate one more. What else you got? You can't think of anything. Chrono Trigger. Lego The Lord of the Rings. That's awesome. That's cool. Thanks, Kerflop. As far as Chrono Trigger is concerned, I've already played it on stream, though, Brahms. Already played it and won it. I like Chrono Trigger. So that's the only thing about that. I could, I guess, do Chrono Cross. I could do that. I like Chrono Cross. That would give me a chance to listen to one of my favorite soundtracks. Chrono Cross is an awesome soundtrack. So I could do that. So Here's a Might and Magic 3, Growlancer 2, Lego The Lord of the Rings, and Chrono Cross. Anyone else? Yeah, it really is. I think Chrono Cross is actually a better soundtrack than Chrono Trigger. Hero of the Kingdom. What is that one, JLC? I don't think I know that one. Is it a Steam game? I don't think I've heard of that. Is it a Steam game? What is it? Oh, I'm just looking at it right now. This is like, is this like real-time? That's cool. Is this like real-time strategy? Or is it turn-based? It looks pretty cool. Anyway, it's certainly not a vetoable game. Is it Warcraft-like? Or something like that. Anyway, that's good. Okay. It's like a point and click. Okay. All right, then I'm going to open this poll. All right, get your votes in, folks. We are going to vote. The top 3 vote getters will pass. We'll move on to the final round done by next game. So Heroes of Might and Magic 3, Growlancer 2, Lego, The Lord of the Rings, Chrono Cross, and Hero of the Kingdom. Those are your 3. Get in your votes. So we've got 1 vote each for Growlancer 2, 1 vote for Lego The Lord of the Rings, and do I have 1 vote for one other one? This could end up with 2. If we ended up with 2 as our finals, that's okay. It doesn't have to be 3 for the final votes. So that's up to you guys. But let's do that somewhat quickly, if we can, because I've got to rise up on out of here. Who keeps calling from all of these places? I feel like this phone has been ringing off the hook as of late because we have a big primary coming up on Thursday, which I'll definitely be voting for, and all of you should also. Okay. All right. Frosty Ray has got Lego The Lord of the Rings up there also. So, it's the IRS. There's a warrant out from IRS. Boy, I hope not. There's not much point. The IRS would be like, oh, this guy? No, never mind. Okay. So, last call. Here we go. Last call here. Lego The Lord of the Rings, Growlancer 2, Hero of the Kingdom. All right, going once, going twice. And that's, and Hero of the Kingdom. Okay. And poll is closed. Okay, so Lord of the Rings, so Growlancer 2, Lego The Lord of the Rings, and Hero of the Kingdom. Those are the ones that I will put in there. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. I will put that into next game, but I will do it, excuse me, later, because right now what I got to do is I got to get out of here because I'm going to be over in about 15 minutes over on GOG for my Pen and Pixel show, where I will be playing Divinity Original Sin 2, and I'll be continuing my playthrough of that game. Really enjoying Divinity Original Sin 2, so I'll be continuing that later on today. But that's going to do it for me. Schedule-wise, going to be over there, and then on Friday, I'll be back here. Again, reminder, at 9 p.m. Eastern, Friday, I've got a roundtable discussion with 2 amazing composers. John Everest, who did the soundtrack for Battletech from Harebrained Schemes, and Darren Korb, who did the soundtrack for Transistor, for Pyre, and for Bastion. Super excited to have that discussion. After we're done with them, I will probably be playing some Lone Wolf HD Remastered. So that's what I've got on the docket. So I'm really excited about that, and I hope you are as well. And then, of course, we've got Saturday, the D&D with INB, as we continue with Dungeons & Dragons with Infinity and Beyond and the Curse of Strahd, which is going to be super awesome. So that's happening on Saturday. Thank you for all of you who supported the stream today. Thank you for all this. Thank you for people who are able to sub to the channel, who follow the channel, who check out the YouTube with !ArvTube, the Discord with !ArvCord, the Twitter with !ArvTweets. Please make sure to check out the shop, !ArvShop. More merchandise is going up there very, very soon. !ArvTreon will get you over to the Patreon, where you can inspire people like Nonstop did super clutch today, as usual. So please consider doing doing that. And you get cool things for yourself, cool things for the channel, character backgrounds, things like that. And again, Brahms is going to be getting a character background from me based upon his support of the Patreon. And last but certainly not least, of course, that sub button above the video window here is really useful as well, because you can get cool stuff you can get those cool emotes, Arvini get hyped, Arvini hype, I should say, which is that gold get hyped. You can use here, there, and everywhere, plus the custom sub badge. Well, whatever you're willing to give me, Brahms, whatever you need, whatever you can give me is fine. I'll work with what I have either way. That's cool either way. So you can do that. The other thing I want to mention about the subs again is September. So remember, from the 10th through the 30th, if you got a gift sub, or if you gifted somebody else a sub, if someone has a gift sub, they can renew that sub for $1. So if you get a sub between now and the 30th, you can then gift sub between these times. If you renew it between now and the 30th, it will only cost you $1 to do so. So if you get gifted a sub, you can expand that goodness for another 30 days for only $1, which I think is a pretty good deal. So that's going to do it for that. Please consider supporting me in those ways. And thank you to all of those who have been able to support so far. Really had a good time today, and I'm looking forward to more. But I'm going to get on out of here. I will see you folks over at GOG for Pen and Pixels. Thanks to my wonderful viewers. Thank you to Terry Tunes. Wonderful job today, as always, Terry. Thank you. Thank you to Kerflop and Nonstop, all three of those subscribers. Thank you so much again, Nonstop. Super clutch with that inspiration. Thank you. Thank you to 8 Rose, to Ace Theor. Thank you to Kumatashio. Thank you to Apricot, to Brahms, to Commander Root, Day_ECAG, Frosty Ray, JLC, Moves Like Jagger, Mr. Mano, Positivity Bot for always keeping things positive. Thank you to Filder Beast for the follow today. Thank you to Questionable Results. Thank you to Sea Langust. I think I've seen you in here before, so welcome back, Sea. Thank you to Skinny Seahorse, to Slow Cool, to Stay Hydrated Bot for always keeping me hydrated. Thank you to Trendane. Great job today. Go get some sleep, man. Thank you to you, Christensen. Thank you to Uncle Elias, to VAK, to Virgo Praz. Thank you to our official sponsors, Cubicle 7. And thank you to our wonderful players, Amal, Will, Trendane, and of course, Terry Tunes. You guys are the best. Love you all, and I love everybody in chat as well. Best viewers on Twitch. I will see all of you over in GOG in a little more than 10 minutes. Until I do, thanks everybody. Be good to each other. Have a good day.